Just right on time. Look at that, 7:30 or 2:30 p.m. if you're in the States.
I
At
wish
least
it was 7.
one part of the States. It's 2:30 p.m.
Why am I still not live? What's going on here?
You are live.
There we go. Let me mute that.
Okay. Let me check my voice recorder. Hopefully it's working this week.
I'm looking suave today.
The voice recorder's acting weird. It's not. It's doing the same thing this week as it did last week for me.
Oh, yeah, mine is too. I just have like a screen with the microphone.
Yeah. Testing 1, 2, 3. Testing. It takes like 5 seconds to start the recording.
So not good. Come on, Microsoft. What are you doing?
Yeah. Testing 1, 2, 3. It's working now, but
there it goes.
There's definitely a bug when it launches, or it doesn't initially activate. All right, I'm ready to go when you are.
Okay, I am now recording.
I am now recording as well.
All right, 3, 2, 1.
I didn't hear your clap, by the way.
I screwed up. I turned the RTX on too soon. All right, let's do it again. All right, 3, 2, 1.
Is this the same recording, by the way? Okay, cool.
Yes. Welcome to the Windows Central Podcast, episode 194 for September 4th, 2020. Hey everyone, Daniel Rubino here, joined with Zach Bowden for another exciting episode of the Windows Central Podcast this week, when we talk about some new Microsoft code names. Always sort of exciting, as that usually hints at some new devices and new stuff coming or refreshes of current devices. So we'll talk a little bit about that. Plus, there were a lot of announcements this week, including Qualcomm Snapdragon 8cx Gen 2 5G compute platform. That is technically its full name. We'll just call it 8cx Gen 2, and what it is, what it means, and when you can get your hands on it, as well as what this could mean for future devices as well. We'll talk about the Surface Duo, of course. I still have it in front of me. I haven't dropped it, surprisingly. Still can't review the operating system yet, but we'll just talk about some things. Screen protectors I've tried on, dbrand skins, my active watch that I've been using with it, as well as Zach has some news regarding possible international availability. Well, let's talk a little bit about insider news. Is what's a Windows Central Podcast without the Windows Insider thing program. Sorry, I didn't really set myself up right for that one. And then finally, let's wrap up some IFA news. I normally would be in Berlin right now, along with Zach, eating hamburgers, drinking beer, and having a really good time. But instead, I'm here again.
I'm here in my office.
In my office, which is fine. I have my cute little senior cat. She's in the corner, sleeping away. But we'll talk about the Intel 11th Gen announcements. So that's a reality now. A bunch of announcements. For those of you hoping that, Intel would trip on its feet and AMD was going to rush in here and take over the laptop market, I'm sorry to report that is definitely not happening, at least not yet. But there was also NVIDIA RTX 30 series news, which is now out, or coming out, I should say, and what that means. That was actually kind of a really big deal. So we'll talk about what that means. And some new laptops, too. So what's IFA without new laptops? I'm going to talk about one specific thing I'm very excited about. You probably heard me rant about on this podcast before, which is touchpads. So we'll talk about what that means. Zach, how are you doing on this fine Friday?
I'm not too bad. I'm counting down the days. Just, I think, 6 more days until Surface Duo is available. And then, which means 7 or 8 more days for it, until I get one in my hands. But it's getting there. We're slowly... And I just hope I don't die between now and the end of next week. That's all I'm hoping for.
That's true. That reminds me, we'll talk about Duo in a little bit, but Ninja Cat stickers. Yes. I still have to pick 5 people from last week, but we'll pick another 5 this week too. I actually got quite a few responses. If you don't know, we didn't have this on the recording last week for the podcast. We did do it in the Q&A, but this is a special Ninja Cat sticker featuring the Andromeda logo on the flag there, which is also now known as Surface Duo. And so I have a few of these to give away. We'll try to give away about 15 of them. So I have to pick 5 people from last week. The rules to be qualified for this that are very strict. That's it. I think I had like 40 people at least send me this. You need to pre-order Surface Duo. So you need to send me a copy of the receipt from Microsoft or Best Buy, wherever you got it from. You can block out any, information, although I'm going to need your address anyway if I need to send this to you. And send it to me with just contest in the subject line at daniel@windowscentral.com. And I'm going to randomly pick a few people to get one of these things. These are from someone at Microsoft. They wish to remain anonymous, but these are kind of official, unofficial Ninja Cat stickers. And they're only for the hardcore Duo fans. So
did you say 40 people emailed in?
I believe at least 40 people.
That's like
it was
what, $56,000 Microsoft has made on Duo. Success.
It was more than I thought, especially because we didn't talk about during the main segment of the podcast. It was just during the Q&A period, and I still had a lot of people, hear about it and send me those receipts too. So yeah. And just a reminder, if you don't get one, it is just a sticker.
But also, it's one of the coolest stickers that are out there. So if you don't get one, you're a loser.
Right. But you'll at least need a Surface Duo to put it on. I think that's fair. Because those are the hardcore fans who, listen, if you're pre-ordering this, I salute you. Yeah. Without even a review, you're going to put down $1,400. You're the cool crowd, because this is going to be a journey. We'll talk about it a little bit, of course, as well as some news there. But let's get
real quick before you move on. People in the chat are asking,
sure.
What should the headline be in the email that they send to you?
Just contest.
Contest, okay.
Yep, that's it. Yeah, pretty simple. I have a filter that will put them all into a thing, and then I'll randomize them. So anyway, let's get to the first news. Microsoft code names. So this was actually a joint project between you and Walking Cat, also known as at HXOD0. I don't know. Walking Cat on Twitter. He's a mystery. We don't know who he is. He's represented by a cat. But he's always very good at finding code names, but not necessarily knowing what those code names represent, which is where you come in, because you end up taking those code names and you get some info. So, Zach, what can you tell us?
So, Walking Cat, he was actually banned earlier this week from Twitter. His main account,
he's back.
Is his main account back? Because he's using a secondary account right now. So yeah, his main account was suspended because I think he leaked all the Intel stuff, and Intel wasn't happy about that. So he created a second account. Yeah, I believe that's
what
the
it
reason.
was.
I think so. Who knows, right? I don't know.
How can that happen?
I guess maybe there was copyright material in the videos he leaked, and Intel got around it that way. Maybe, I don't know. Anyway, that's not the big news. So he created a second account to sort of get back at everyone, and he just went crazy. Went, here's a whole bunch of code names I've been sitting on. Have fun with them. So the first set of code names he sort of released on Twitter were, from top to bottom, Karina, Kayukos. I don't know how to pronounce that. Cayucos. Arcata and Luca. Daedalus and Orpheus, Zeus and Hercules. So these are Greek mythology code names.
Yeah, I was going to say it's a very Greek.
Yes.
So, I wonder why Panos Panay made.
Yes, right. Good connection. Yes. So he doesn't know too much about these code names. So he thinks Karina is a Pro-X related code name. Kayukos is a Pro related code name. Arcata and Luca are 5G/120 Hertz devices, but no idea what product line that is. Daedalus and Orpheus, perhaps 13/15-inch siblings. Zeus and Hercules, has no idea, but interesting nonetheless. So I've been trying to dig around regarding some of this, and I've only really come up with one of these codenames so far. That's the Pro-X related stuff. So Karina, I guess, is what he reckons it's codenamed. I've been hearing that, yes, there is a new Pro-X refresh on the horizon. Sources have told me it will be powered by an SQ2 chip, which will likely be based on the just announced Snapdragon 8CX Gen 2 variant, which we'll be talking about in a minute. And it will also be available in Platinum, which the original Surface Pro X wasn't. The first Surface Pro X was black only, which I hated because all of my Surfaces are Platinum. So why would I buy a black Surface Pro? It makes no sense. And also the fingerprints on the Surface Pro X originally, just too much. It's just too much. So it
really was.
Yeah, so the Platinum one should hopefully solve that. And that's what I'm hearing regarding the Pro X so far. I have no idea if the screen will be 120 Hz or if it will be 5G. I assume it will be 5G based on the fact that the 8CX is 5G, right? Gen 2.
Well, we'll talk about that in a sec. It's optional. They can do it without 5G. It's not required. The 120 hertz thing, man, obviously. So I have this dream. So I love 120 hertz refresh, obviously, but I also recognize the challenge in the engineering, which is you're doubling the refresh. It impacts the battery like severely. The display is one of the number one battery drainers on any device.
Yes.
Now, on Surface Studio, this doesn't matter. So
Right.
if they do Surface Studio 3 and they don't do 120 hertz, I'm gonna be like, WTF, right? Like, why? It's plugged in, it doesn't matter. Mobile devices, I'm a little like more forgiving. You'll see it in gaming laptops. Heck, you see 300 hertz now in gaming laptops, where the technological solution to this is going to be an variable rate refresh, VRR, which is what you see on even something like this, right? The Note 20 Ultra has 120 hertz, but it's a variable rate refresh, which means it's not always 120 hertz. When it's sitting there not doing anything, it drops down. If they can do that technology in Pro X, and to be clear, there's really no reason to believe the Pro X has 120 hertz.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, we're just kind of like wishing.
It would be nice.
It would be nice because ARM chips have the perception, namely from people who have never used them, and specifically on the Pro X, of not being fast. And I'm here to tell you, as a Pro X hardcore user, it's actually pretty responsive. But if you knock that to 120 hertz, the perception of 120 hertz is it feels faster. And that's a running joke, of course, here at Windows Central. It always seems faster. But 120 hertz does give that illusion. It's one reason why iOS is so kind of good at what it does. They have sort of better animations, but now they can do 120. So it's just the perception of it. If they can do 120 hertz on Pro X, the perception of it being faster, I guarantee you will sway people to being like, oh my God, it's so nice. That said, this is one of those, I think it's a moonshot. I'd love them to do something like that.
Yeah.
But I'm not holding my breath. I think there's a better chance of 120 hertz on like a Surface Studio 3 than necessary mobile device. But fingers crossed.
But the rest of that, so the Pro X2 or the Pro X Refresh, whatever they're going to call it, the Pro X Pro, who knows, with the SQ2, which will likely be based on the HCX Gen 2, is definitely coming this year, likely in the October timeframe, I'm being told, and will be also available in Platinum, which will be the sort of, I guess, the new selling point for this device in addition to the updated chip. There's some more code names he posted a bit later on in the day. He had Sparty or Spartai, Zeta or Zeta, Olympus, California, and Emporia. So I know what two of these are, and I'm getting information on the third one, but I can't share much on the third one yet. So let's talk about the ones I can talk about. Zeta or Zeta. How do you pronounce it in America? Zeta? Zeta? Zeta.
Catherine Zeta-Jones.
Zeta. I'll say Zeta, why not? So Zeta. Zeta is, I've known this code name for a while now, and I've been sitting on it, and I was going to sort of save it for the actual Duo 2 write-up I do, but Walking Cat leaked it anyway. Thanks, Walking Cat. But anyway, Zeta is the Surface Duo 2. That's the code name for the next Surface Duo, which is, as far as I'm aware, scheduled for end of next year, 2021. I don't know too much about it just yet. I've already mentioned on the podcast last week the Duo 2 is supposedly has thinner bezels. I don't know if that means slightly bigger screens or a slightly smaller overall device size. I am also I don't want to give away too much. It does also have NFC. I will say that. So if the reason you're not getting a Duo 1 is because of NFC, wait for Duo 2 because I'm told it will have NFC, and I will talk about more when I can, I promise, but that's all I can give you for now. But yes, Zeta is Duo 2. Olympus is, I believe, the big Surface Hub 2, the big one that they announced back in April 2019, was it? You were at the event. Yeah. So they announced, so obviously the Surface Hub 2 has been split up into a whole bunch of different products. It was originally just the 2, then they went the S and the X, and then they sort of half cancelled the X. The X is sort of postponed indefinitely, and now it's the Surface Hub 2S, and then the Surface Hub 2 85-inch, I think it is. It's the massive, like, 16:9 widescreen one, which if you go back and watch the Surface Duo unveiling event, the 35-minute one, you can actually see them in the background. Panos uses it to talk to Shilpa. That's a big Surface Hub 2, and also in the background where they're in the lab, they've got 2 of them at the back of the room there as well. So it's pretty cool. Apparently there's also a Surface Hub 2 display on the way, but Microsoft hasn't commented on that, and I don't know if that's part of these code names that Walking Cat has released. The final one that I can't talk too much about yet is Sparty. I'm hearing some interesting things, and hopefully I'll have more for you next week on that. I just need to get some things confirmed first. But if Sparty's what I'm hearing it is, it's going to be, I think, a surprise, because I wasn't expecting Microsoft to do what I'm hearing Sparty is.
Yeah, that one's gonna be kind of fun. I think it makes sense. We talked about it before the podcast, but
It's not a wearable, for those wondering. It's not a wearable.
yes, it's not the. Hopefully, one of those code names is a wearable,
Maybe
but
one
yeah,
day,
no
yeah.
sign of a wearable yet. Although, as I've said before, I'd be shocked if they're not working on one. But yeah, we'll have to see. That said, I mean, Michael Fisher, aka Mr. Mobile, just published his kind of what he calls a wrist-on of the Nubia. I forgot the name of it. It's a wearable smartwatch thing with a wraparound kind of OLED display, the same technology that Samsung is using. And if you look at it, it looks like a really rough, janky version of what Microsoft proposed in 2015 during their Visions video, where they have like almost like a bracelet that wraps around your wrist. And it's all display. It can snap into a display, and it's its own kind of computer. It can show notifications. This is kind of like that. It's just the software is not very refined, but the hardware is really interesting. I still believe Microsoft wants to do something like that. Those Vision videos have turned out to be pretty accurate in terms of what Microsoft is actually trying to do. But I mean, they got to wait till the technology is viable, right? It's actually, you can get good battery life, and you can actually mass produce something like that. So
It's also worth mentioning, not all of these code names are Surface PCs. Some of them may be accessories or components that go onto an actual overall product. And that's what's really hard about these code names. In addition to that, Microsoft likes to change the code name depending on the team that's working on it. So I believe most of these are engineering code names, but marketing has an entirely different set of code names usually. So people like me have to be careful as to who I'm asking and what I'm asking and what I'm sharing on the internet after the fact. So keep an eye out for some more information on some of these code names in the near future. I am hearing there's going to be some sort of event, maybe not an event, but new products, new Surfaces coming out in October, as there usually is. There's been an October Surface hardware refresh, I think, for the last 2 or 3 years now. So they're just sort of continuing that trend. I don't think it's going to be as huge as previous years. I'm expecting not too many new devices, in fact. But hopefully I'll be able to share more with you on that subject in the near future. But Dan, I want to know more about this HCX Gen 2, because if it's powering the next Surface Pro, it's got to be good, right?
yeah. So yeah, this week, IFA, as we mentioned earlier, Berlin, Qualcomm had a big thing. And we're kind of used to a yearly cadence from Qualcomm. Now this year they didn't announce like a new, how can I say, like a new complete chip platform, right? It's just HCX Gen 2. So it's the same platform basically as we have now. It's improved, and it's improved in a few ways. One, it has Wi-Fi 6 now. And I'm actually a big proponent of Wi-Fi 6. Technically, to get all the benefits, you need a Wi-Fi 6 router, which I have, so I care. But you also get benefits from a Wi-Fi 6 chipset, even on older chipset, Wi-Fi 5, what's called Wi-Fi 5 now. So there are benefits there, but it's also just modern. And up to now, we haven't had ARM devices with that. It's always been weird because you'd get like LTE, but you want to get the latest Wi-Fi. So they've addressed that now. So now you can get Wi-Fi 6. There's also now 5G support. Now, to be clear, Lenovo teamed up with Qualcomm and basically shoved 5G onto the current HCX, which is now known as the Lenovo Flex 5G. This was originally called Project Limitless, but that was a one-off. That was an exception. So in other words, if you were like Samsung and you built an HCX device, you'd have to you couldn't just do 5G. You had to do something special. HCX Gen 2 basically now has 5G kind of a part of it. That said, they don't need to build devices with 5G. So if you're an OEM and you're like, I want to use the HCX, but 5G presumably drives up the cost. I've referred to it as the 5G tax before, and it's kind of true. They can build devices without 5G, so it's not required, which is nice. as much as I like 5G, or at least the theory of it, I don't think it should be required necessarily, which is what you do see on the smartphone chipset. So if like Microsoft went with the 865 and Duo, the Surface Duo, it would have to be 5G, which requires a whole other antenna design. It requires more battery life, or at least will negatively affect the battery life. So there are downsides to that. But so now 5G is optional. Any OEM can use it. And there was some hand waving about improved performance. They said it's basically faster and more efficient. What that actually means, I don't know. They did compare it to an Intel 10th gen Core i5, showing how like percentage-wise it's faster than that, which should give you, and that's of course running in ARM, right? That's not emulating for x86. But I would probably expect 100, maybe 200 hertz faster. I don't know. I don't think it's gonna be a ton, but any speed increase is kind of welcomed, right? And efficiency too. Maybe it gets a little bit better battery life. Now, what Microsoft will do with that remains to be seen. So what Microsoft does is they take that as a base platform, and they do the SQ1 Surface Qualcomm 1, and now we're expecting an SQ2 based off of this chip. What Microsoft has done in the past is like the GPU, the Adreno 6, I believe they use the Adreno 645 in the Pro X, is a significantly beefier GPU than what's found in other Windows 10 and ARM devices. That's one way they've been able to sort of improve performance. And I imagine we would probably see that here as well. And if they can get a little bit extra battery life, a little bit extra performance out of this and jack it up, I believe also, yeah, the the ATX is a 2.85 gigahertz chip. Microsoft's been running at 3 gigahertz, right? So that's where the little speed increases on the CPU. So we may see that increase a little bit more this time around. And maybe Microsoft is going to sort of, that little extra headroom allows them maybe to do 5G. They do need to redesign the antenna system for that to make sure it happens, because we're talking millimeter wave and sub-6. So you get both of them. And maybe that extra battery life allows them to do a variable rate refresh. I'm still not convinced that's going to happen, as much as I would love it to be. But at least 5G potential, Wi-Fi 6, slightly better performance. And yeah, and then you throw in the platinum color change, or at least option for it. That's not a huge revision, right? That's what I expect with Pro X. Pro X, in my opinion, the hardware is phenomenal. Like, there's really, the only thing I complained was the glossy display. I'd prefer it was anti-reflective, but that's a simple change they can kind of do. And yeah, the black is very, very fingerprint prone. It doesn't bother me right now because I put dbrand skins on it, which I thought looked awesome anyway. But I agree, having it in platinum kind of solves this problem, and it'd be kind of cool to have that sort of color option.
Yeah.
So the Pro X version 2, Gen 2, whatever it is, will be a minor upgrade, but it'll be sort of pushing in the right direction of stuff we want. If this is the first 5G Surface, that's super interesting. It's still early for most people, and I don't have 5G where I am. I can get T-Mobile 5G if I drive a couple towns over and randomly hit stuff. But if I want like Verizon Ultra Wideband, also known as the millimeter wave stuff, I literally have to go into Boston and then hit specific streets like to get it. But it's a nice thing to have. You don't need to use 5G, right? It still just falls back to 4G. Yeah.
So the other piece of the puzzle to this is, will this have support for x86 64-bit desktop app emulation? That's the question, right? Because that's kind of what a lot of people are waiting for. And with the increased performance of the SQ2 or the 8CX Gen 2, whatever you want to call it, are we now at a point where 64-bit app emulation is doable, in a sense that it's not a terrible experience to the user? I've been hearing from sources internally that Microsoft is getting close to being ready to announce that this support is coming. I don't know if it will be announced alongside this Pro X announcement, or if it'll be as something that in 2021. If anything, it will be announced in preview this year and will ship in the Windows 10 releases coming next year. We
have to remember Ignite is coming up.
Yep.
And true. Panos, in an interview with the president of Qualcomm, did say there are app there's app news around ARM coming in the coming
Right.
weeks, which I'm pretty sure is Ignite. Brad's what's his name? Vice President of
Brad Anderson? No,
Anderson.
is it Anderson?
Yeah,
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Anderson. Yeah, Brad Anderson will be doing a presentation on this. One of the things they're doing is moving out of like kind of preview is this like some kind of program that has to do with getting app makers onto ARM, which I guess is kind of like in a preview early stage right now. It's going to go wide. And they're going to have announcements around ARM. We may, I don't know, do we get excited? Maybe Adobe finally might have something to announce. Maybe. But there is sort of momentum around Ignite, around ARM and app announcements and support. I don't want to get too excited over that, but Panos did go out of his way to mention that. So perhaps. I should also say, along with the news of the HCX Gen 2, there were two hardware announcements. One is Acer will have the Spin 7 arriving sometime later this year. By the way, that's when the HCX Gen 2 is coming. It's later this year, which is nice. Normally, we hear kind of platform updates from Qualcomm. It's like 6 months from now, right? So this is actually coming in the next few months, which ties into the idea that this is a revision, right? The Spin 7 is a traditional Ultrabook convertible, so it rotates around like a standard laptop. It does have a siloed active pen, which is nice, so it pops up from the side, sort of like what Lenovo has done in the past. And it'll probably the price, I imagine $999. I'm just taking a guess. We don't know the price or the exact date, but it looks like a pretty nice, if not expected, device, right? And that's fine. The 2-in-1 design is well known. A lot of people like the idea of a laptop that just turns into a tablet. The more interesting one is HP's back. And I'm excited about this because HP made one of the best ARM devices I ever used, the NVX2. That came out in 2018, though. It was part of that first gen stuff. It was the Snapdragon 835, which, listen, I used it. There's a picture of me on Instagram using it in the back of a cab. Like, it really was a great device. But it was slow. That was the first gen. They just repurposed a smartphone processor for Windows 10. But that hardware was phenomenal. Like, the keyboard was great. Just the design of it was solid. I was really, really excited about it. So HP teased this new device, which I do expect to be announced, I don't know, October, November. I don't have a date yet. This thing looks like a combo between what the NVX2 was and what they did with the Spectre Folio, which was like a leather-based PC, had cloth on it. So this kind of looks like a laptop that has sort of like a cloth or leather back to it. And the display can detach from the base through magnets, sort of like a Surface Book, but it just pulls up and there's no release mechanism. Pulls up, and then you can flip it around. You just put the display onto the back of the device because the leather is going to kind of hold it together like a I don't know, like a faux hinge almost. And I imagine it'll attach probably through magnets that way. It does support inking. They're using, so HP, just like Dell, Lenovo, all work with Microsoft and like Intel, and they work with Qualcomm on devices. So HP's clearly worked with Microsoft on this. And you can see they're using the same pen mechanism as the Pro X does. That is, the pen goes behind the keyboard. So when you don't need it, it's just hidden away. And when you do need it, it's there for you. So it's a flat kind of pen, which is a really great design. It's one of the best things about the Pro X is I don't use a pen very often, but darn it all, that one time I need that pen, it's right there, right? And so this is going to be kind of a new, exciting kind of form factor, and it will be powered by the ATX Gen 2. I presume it'll probably also be 5G. That's something I can see HP definitely doing. And HP makes great hardware, right? So this is going to be a really kind of cool device that I imagine will be announced alongside kind of the Pro X Gen 2 kind of thing. And people can pick and choose which one they want. But yeah, hopefully it has at least a 3:2 or 16:10 aspect ratio. They better not do 16:9. But when it comes to tablets, HP's been pretty consistent on this. They do the right aspect ratios. So
yeah. So it sounds like October's going to be an exciting time if you are a
Yes.
Surface and/or Windows 10 on ARM fan. Microsoft does seem committed, right? They're not giving up on it. They're doing a new Pro.
They're definitely not.
Their partnership with Qualcomm is very strong. I assume it spans many years into the future as well. So looking forward to some stuff on the horizon.
Yeah, I like the way they're doing this, right? So like it's every time an announcement comes out, like this year, this gen, right? The ATX, we have three devices: the Pro X, Samsung's really nice,
Book
what's
S.
it called? Yeah, Book S, which is just ridiculous hardware, right? And then of course you have the Flex 5G, and all those were different, right? The Pro X is basically the Surface Pro design. You have the Flex 5G, standard kind of laptop, but it's the first 5G laptop ever. That's pretty wild. And then you have Samsung's, which was this like really cool Ultrabook that wasn't a convertible, didn't support pen. It was just a really nice thin elegant looking laptop. And that's nice, right? That's kind of what you want. You want to like, you can pick one of those and they're all kind of different, have their pros and cons. And we're kind of seeing that again, what I see for the fall. You're going to have Microsoft with Pro X revision. You're going to have this new crazy HP device, which I think will get a lot of interest. I think when people see this, I really love the Spectre Folio, by the way. That was one of my favorite laptops. But the processor, it was okay. The battery life was all right, got you through. That was like a Core M and eventually Core Y type processor. What killed that device for me was the trackpad. This was before HP converted to precision, and it was just a terrible, terrible trackpad that I could not get used to. I even hacked on precision drivers, and it was almost worse. That device though was so beautiful. Like I really wanted to see them sort of continue with that. And I'm hoping this, but hey, throw ARM in this, I'm excited. And then you have Acer, right? The Acer Spin 7 is not an exciting device, but it's what you need. Sometimes you just need that middle of the road. This is not a, super expensive device, just middle of the road laptop, convertible, supports active pen, siloed. I think it's cool. So yeah, it's gonna be a good fall. I'm very excited about all this stuff.
Yeah. You know what else I'm excited about? Surface Duo, which is almost here. And I've had a lot of questions on the internet asking me, "Hey, I'm a Surface Duo fan, but I'm not in the United States. When can I buy one?" It's a great question, honestly, and I've kind of been rather frustrated with Microsoft's communication on this sort of topic because whenever I've asked them officially and unofficially, they've sort of just been like, we're phased approach. We're just seeing how things are. They're not giving any time frame, although internally they do have one, and it's not good news. So I'm hearing that Microsoft is if they are planning to ship Surface Duo in external markets, it won't be until early 2021. And there's a few reasons for that. The number one reason is they don't want to make too many and sell too few. They want to see how the US market reacts to it first before ramping up production in other markets, because the more you make, the more you have to sell for it to be a success. So they're trying to keep this as low volume as possible, at least for Gen 1. So this could go either one of two ways. The Surface Duo could do exceptionally well in the US, and Microsoft could bring forward the Surface Duo launch, and it may launch later this year if the Surface Duo does well in the US. If it's just doing okay, then it likely won't be until 2021, and if it does terribly, then they likely won't launch the Surface Duo in other markets at all and just wait for Surface Duo 2. The Surface Duo doing poorly in the US does not have a factor on whether or not they do a Duo 2. The Surface Duo 2 is happening regardless of how well the Surface Duo 1 does. That's just what they've committed to. That's what Satya Nadella and the higher ups have said. That's fine, you can do that. So if you're worried, if Surface Duo 1 doesn't come out in other markets, don't worry. Surface Duo 2 is still coming. But yes, if you're somebody who's sort of been hoping and waiting for the Surface Duo to launch in other markets, you might be waiting a while, unfortunately. Luckily, there are third-party vendors you can sort of contact to import a Surface Duo. It is more expensive, but based on the currency conversion, you might actually save a few bucks or pounds or dollars or whatever it is your currency is. So take a look at that. What is it? BigAppleBuddy.com? I can't remember the name of the website.
Something like that. Yeah, I have it in the FAQ. So for those listening right now, and I just shared it in the chat, if you go to windowscentral.com/surface-duo, I believe that's the address. Yes, that's my 4,000-word FAQ on Surface Duo. And in there, I talk about where you can buy it if you're internationally, through a third party, of course, as well as carriers. Basically, I'm pretty positive I answered 98% of the questions on Surface Duo there. So go check that out.
Do you answer the question of how much will the bumper cost?
Yes.
How much will they cost?
They are going to cost $40.
That's too expensive
insane.
for a bit of silicone.
It is too expensive. But that's, yeah, I mean, listen, the Surface line is very much like Apple stuff,
It's
right?
true,
Apple
yeah.
charges how much do they charge for a replacement cable, lightning
like
cable?
$30.
Yeah, I mean, it's big. Now they give you, to be clear, they give you the bumper in the box.
You do get a free one, so just use it sparingly.
I mean, it's a $1,400 device, but at least you get a free bumper in the case, free in quotes, of course. These are replacement bumpers, although we are expecting, it hasn't been confirmed yet, but we are expecting different colors, basically 3 different colors that match the current Surface lineup, which is sort of like a dark gray, kind of like my earbuds I'm wearing, as well as a red and a blue. So I still have not put on the bumper onto my Duo.
Are you excited to put it on? Can you do it on video?
Yeah, I kind of want to try it. But so my problem with the Duo right now is not even a problem. It's just the fact that I have to go shoot a video review.
Yeah.
And so once you put that bumper on, you're not really supposed to kind of take it off again. And so I want to get some possible video with it without and then put it on.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm kind of waiting. I had this problem too this week. So I did test, and I actually have on this right now, the ZAGG, Z-A-G-G, InvisiShield screen protector thing. So ZAGG, and you can get it at Best Buy, and I think AT&T sells it. It's not cheap. It's like 30 or 40 bucks. But it's it does do the outside of the glass. So I have it on the outside, I have it on the back, and then there's 2 that go for the inside screen. So it does all, so you get 4 pieces in it. And ZAGG's installation is just bizarre. You put it on the device and then you fold it back, and it messes with your mind with how you install it. And I will say, very much pay attention to the directions of it. Do the steps. They're like step 1, 2, 3, 4.
Did you mess it up?
On one screen, I did. I jumped to 3, and it caused me an issue. And it's a shame because they don't give you replacements in there. So if you screw up one, but they're pretty forgiving too to install. And they give you a thing that lines up on the device, and then you place it down, all that. It's pretty good. So I have a review for that coming next week. I wanted to do it this week, but since I can't show this display on, it makes the photos a little bit less exciting. But if you're curious about the ZAGG, and I know a lot of people are curious about, and let me make sure this is off, when I flip it around, so that's what the ZAGG, it doesn't interfere with the closing of the device or reverse.
So unlike the D brands, which do for some reason.
Yeah, D brands are thicker, and so those cause a little bit. You can still close it. I mean, it does go around, but it does give a little bit more of a wedge kind of feel. This doesn't. This basically completely goes around. And same when you close it, right? When you close it, it looks like Microsoft left just enough of a teeny bit of space. So if you do add screen protectors to both displays, it doesn't cause a problem. It just fully closes just as it did before, stays closed, no problem. Now, what I ended up doing, of course, is I hate glossy screens, as everybody should know by now. There's always a quiz at the end of this podcast. You should know that about me. And so someone mentioned that there are matte screen protectors on Amazon. I ordered those up, and that's also, I'll have a review for that next week. Those are $8. They're way cheaper. Now it's just 2 screen protectors, 1 for each display. It doesn't do the outside, but you get 3 for each screen, like 3, so 6. So if you screw it up or you scratch them or whatever like that, you have 2 more. That's a really nice feeling. I will say the installation though was genius. I had no problem installing them. No need to use a second one. In fact, I'm sending Zach the second pair so he can have them. And I can show you those right here. Again, I got to turn the display off, but this is with a matte screen protector on. And I'm a huge fan of matte because the Surface Duo is already pretty much like a sci-fi device, right? It's really bizarre looking. But when you put on matte, it gives this weird effect. That's kind of cool.
That looks really good, yeah. Looks really clean.
Where the screen doesn't look like it's, especially it looks cooler when it's on, obviously, but I can't show you that. Obviously, it can pick up fingerprints. You may see some on here, but it is much better at hiding those fingerprints. The pen works fine too. I've had no issues with that. The pen itself, I'll talk about that during the review, but no issues with touch and all that. And like I said, it closes. And I gotta tell you, for $8, that's a hell of a steal. But I like this because there's the Kindle app on here, which Microsoft previewed. It does 2 screens. It's just really beautiful looking. So if you're going to be using Duo as kind of like a reading device, and for me, Duo is a device you sit down and you get immersed in. So that's why Duo isn't going to be good for people who are like, no, I want to in and out of my phone real quick. I'm always peeping and I want one screen. Obviously, Duo is not good for you. Duo is good for getting immersed in stuff. And if you're doing the Kindle Reader or any kind of heavy reading, matte displays are way better because I showed you pictures of the, compared to glossy versus the matte and the light reflection. Matte just gets it doesn't get completely rid of the glare. It just diffuses it.
Yeah.
Makes it, and it's just easier on your eyes. So look for those next week. I'll have that in conjunction with the review for Duo. We're dropping the review for Duo on the 10th. Look for that. But yeah, that's the Duo so far. So
great.
Can't really say much more about it.
No, it's still limited because we can't talk about the software. People are asking in the chat, when will the reviews be going live? I believe it's September 10th. So
Yes.
That's when we'll be. So next week's podcast on the Friday, we'll be talking all about the software, and we'll probably even have Mr. Mobile on as well if you're still up for that.
Yeah, we'll try to get Fisher on to talk about what he thought of it because his opinion is going to be sort of, obviously I'm the fan. I'm be a little bit more forgiving of things where he's not so quite as forgiving. So it'll be interesting to see his take and experience with it. So we'll try to have that for next week as well.
Cool. Shall we talk a bit about the Windows Insider program? This week there was a new Windows Insider preview build, as there is most weeks. This one's kind of interesting, but not really, because if you've been listening to the last few weeks of the podcast, we've already talked about this because it was all enableable in a previous build, but it's now official in the Insider preview build. So build 2026. That's not correct. Build 20,206. A new emoji picker and new touch keyboard experience and voice typing experience is here. So it's the same one from Windows 10X. It's been rebuilt with modern code. I think it's a C shell component. And it has new sounds, it has new animations, and it's much prettier. Again, it looks very much like the Windows 10X one. In fact, it's the Windows 10X one. If you take a look at the Windows 10X emulator and then you boot up build 2206 on your PC, you will see that they are the same thing. And this is I think what Microsoft was talking about when they said that they were going to start bringing Windows 10X experiences to Windows 10 this holiday and next holiday. This is currently in the dev channel, so this likely won't be shipping in the 20H2 release, which is just around the corner. But it will be coming in a release next year. So that's pretty exciting. The most notable change about this keyboard is that, other than the new UI and sounds, is it has GIF support, which I do not think was part of the old one. So if you're in an email or in a conversation, a Telegram chat or something, you can now tap on GIFs and send them straight to that program, which is super nice. There's also the ability to tap and hold on the search bar, tap and hold on the space bar to navigate through text, just like on the iPhone, and I believe SwiftKey does it now on Android, which is super nice. The Google keyboard's done it for a while as well. And then there's just a bunch of sort of fixes and stuff as per usual. So nice to see that they're slowly but surely bringing the 10X UI over to full Windows 10. I don't know how far they're going to go with that. I don't expect to see the new 10X start menu on Windows 10, but fingers crossed, I would love to see the 10X Action Center and Control Center come to Windows 10. And that UI, I think, is just a huge improvement over what's currently in Windows 10. So hopefully we see that at some point soon. Perhaps we're also going to see, I might as well talk about this a bit. I've been hearing recently that in 2021, Microsoft is planning a sort of refresh to Windows 10. And a lot of those 10X elements coming to Windows 10 is part of that. But in addition, Microsoft is also updating a number of inbox apps. Mail, Calendar, Movies TV, Groove Music, and photos are the five I've heard so far that are getting redesigns or rebuilds, in the sense that a lot of them are now are adopting web technologies, either through React Native or Electron. I think they're mostly, I don't know about the Electron side of that, but I think they're mostly React Native. So the calendar preview, which you may not be aware of because it's so under the radar, but right now in the Insider program, some insiders are part of a calendar preview, which is the calendar app but rebuilt using Outlook.com, more or less. That's very similar in that regard, and the Mail app is getting the same treatment sometime next year. In addition to that, the Photos app is being rebuilt as a web app of some kind, likely using React Native, or I hope so. I'd be shocked if it's Electron. And what was the other one I mentioned? Oh, movies, TV, and Groove Music, I'm told, are being merged. I don't know what technology that's going to be using, whether it's a web app or UWP or whatever. But I think they're just going to have a media player built into Windows 10 now.
They should rename. They should move movies and TV, Groove, and other things, and just call it Microsoft Media Center or Windows Media Center.
Great. They should hire you. Do you know that?
Yeah.
So yeah, they're planning to sort of group those together as, I guess, a media player of sorts, which makes sense. I've argued ever since Groove Music subscription died. Why is it still called Groove Music? There's no brand to it. It's a music player. There's no service. It should just be called Music or Media Player. And at that point, just put the video stuff into it as well. So I believe that's what they're planning to do next year. And on the Windows 10X side, there's a new modern file explorer. I don't know if it'll be coming to full Windows 10. I'd be surprised, but who knows. On the Windows 10X side, there's a brand new modern file explorer. We've talked about it a bit before. It is also using web technologies. It's very OneDrive focused because 10X, of course, when it launches in spring 2021, is going to be very cloud focused. So the idea that if you're working on files and stuff, you're going to be storing those in the cloud, not locally on the device. So that's what the new modern file explorer is built around. I believe they call it the Microsoft 365 File Explorer. So that's fun. But yes, so 2021 is sounding like a big year for Windows 10. Mary Jo recently wrote about what she's hearing regarding the schedule. Like, she's hearing that there's only going to be one major Windows 10 update in the fall of next year, because in the spring, Microsoft is releasing 10X and they want to focus the spring on that. And I'm now hearing the same. I've seen schedules that suggest that this is the case, although sources have told me that Microsoft is terrible at committing to its own dates and schedules, so things can change. But as of right now, as of this week, the plan does seem to be that in 2021, Windows 10 Desktop is getting one major update in the fall of the year, so 21H2, I guess. Who knows if it gets a minor 21H1, like a proper minor one, like a 1909 release. I don't count those. They're not real feature updates. As far as we're aware, Windows 10 is getting one major feature update in 2021, and that will be at the end of the year, and that will be a big release. I think it might be one of the biggest releases of Windows 10 we've seen in a while. So this is the Panos effect, right? This is Panos coming in and going, right, put Windows 10 front and center. This is the platform we should be focusing on. Here's what I want you to do. And hopefully in the next few weeks and months, we will start seeing that in the dev channel.
And we get Greek code names. That's the other
code names, many of which I can't pronounce. So well done, Panos.
Yeah, the new emoji picker and all that kind of stuff look great. I don't have them. I'm not running any dev devices.
No, there's no point. There's so little changes most of the time that there's no point downloading a 3 GB update every week.
and then there's also the A/B testing, which I imagine this is a part of.
Yep, this is an A/B test, so most of you probably won't get it.
Yeah, so even if you enroll in dev, there's no chance you're going to get it, which is really frustrating. But it does look really nice. I think these are all the right changes, and it's kind of cool to see the 10X changes coming to Windows. I think it looks pretty modern. So all very good stuff. I'm fine with just one single update next year with a major kind of revision to Windows 10. I think everybody's going to be kind of okay with that. Yes. Well, like we've said before, I mean, you can't just keep forcing twice a year updates just for the sake of having twice a year updates. Right. This is what side rant. This is my problem with human culture. It's like cultures to me are dumb. I don't mean your culture. I mean all of them. They're all dumb because it's like, why do we do this? Because we've always done this. It's like, as a scientist, that's stupid. I want to know a reason why we do stuff. And we shouldn't do twice a year updates just for the sake of doing updates, unless there's something really big plan. So having a 21H2, I'm okay with. Fingers crossed, 10X does come next year in the first half. That said, let's, put the brakes on your enthusiasm. We are expecting this for, uh, basically education devices as
Right.
well as possibly enterprise and first-line worker devices. Meaning, if you're listening to this podcast, your enthusiasm may have just dropped. So, which is fine. I think those are good markets to get 10x into first, build it out, because don't forget, it's a new operating system. It's going to be missing stuff. And they can now build that stuff out. And then when it's ready for consumers, they have new devices. They also have to time it to new hardware, right?
Yeah.
Maybe we'll see 10x for consumer.
Real quick, regarding the inbox app rebuilds or redesigns or whatever, I mentioned web technologies because I'm not too sure how they're going about it. There's a number of different ways you can build a web app. It can be a simple sort of iframe into a website, or it can be an actual dedicated PWA, or it can be an Electron-based thing, or it can be a React Native-based. There's so many different ways to do a web app. Some of which are better than others. I think React Native is the best way to do an air quotes web app because although it's using web technologies, it also uses native UI control, so it feels faster and more fluid on Windows 10. Which I hope most of these are using React Native, but we'll have to wait and see, of course. As a lot of people are saying, how can they be web-based if, what if I want to use them offline? Web apps can be used offline. Google Docs is a great example of this. If you use Chrome OS, the Office suite on that platform is Google Docs, and Google Docs works just fine offline, even though it's a web app. So you can do offline web apps. That's not a problem. That's not the biggest concern. I think the biggest concern will be performance, because web apps can be not as performant as natively rendered UI. But we'll have to wait and see. I don't know enough to sort of comment on that sort of stuff yet. But expect some updates to some of the inbox apps next year. It's basically the news.
Someone's asking, isn't it a little late for 10x? No, I don't think it's ever too late for something, especially if it's a compelling
Unless it's
product.
a phone.
Yeah, unless it's a phone. But no, unless the market is like 100% Chrome OS, like even then, it doesn't mean if the product you're building is good and it has differentiators and value to people and an audience, I don't see why it's too late. I don't know. That's always a weird thing. If you believe in the thing you're making, like even Surface Duo, right? It's Snapdragon 855 last gen chip. Doesn't have NFC, doesn't have Qi. Like there's a lot of stuff missing that a lot of people listening to this podcast would be like, you should not release that now. You should just do Duo 2 and release that one. But if you have confidence in the project itself and the value it brings and think you can get something back out of it, no, I don't think it's ever too late. And let's be honest, Chrome OS has its pros. It's also not amazing. And I've never switched to Chrome OS. I never found value in it myself. And I'm sure a lot of people, I keep telling people listening to this podcast, if you think Chrome OS is so awesome, why aren't you using it? Like, why haven't you not gone by like a really nice laptop with Chrome OS on it? If it's just like the problem solved and they've nailed it, like just why are you listening to us? Just go use Chrome OS and go on with your life. But there's a reason why many of us don't switch to Chrome OS, and there's part of its familiarity. Part of it is we're locked to the Microsoft system or we prefer it. Some of us like the value that Windows brings, including productivity or inking support, or even the fact that Windows can now run on ARM and there aren't really any Chrome OS devices, last I checked, that are ARM-based. They're all Intel. And the value for Chrome OS devices goes down as soon as you start making those to be nice laptops. You start adding really nice displays and thin bezels and really nice hardware. All of a sudden, you're now into the PC range, and then the value is like, well, why am I getting a Chromebook? Chromebooks are good for below $500. And that's an interesting area where Microsoft is trying to compete in. And maybe we'll hear more about that.
Yeah.
So.
I think the other thing as well, why Microsoft is doing 10x as a Chrome OS competitor is because its customers are asking for it. There are thousands and thousands of enterprises out there who like the idea of Chrome OS, but are familiar with the tools and services Microsoft provide to distribute and build Windows 10 and install that. If you're an enterprise and you have 100,000 employees and every single one of those employees has a laptop that is connected to your intranet, it's on a domain, a work-based domain and whatnot, that enterprise is likely familiar with how to manage Windows PCs and how to get all of those users on the same work group and connecting to the intranet and sharing corporate files and whatnot. Chrome, you can't just bring in Chrome OS and hook that up. That's a whole new thing for them to have to figure out and integrate. Windows 10X comes along and says, hey, we're just like Chrome OS, but it's Windows based. So you don't even have to relearn your code or relearn your tools. It just integrates just like you would expect because it's a Windows operating system. That's the key selling point for Windows 10X, specifically to enterprise and the education market. As consumers, it doesn't matter to us, right? We're not dealing with that sort of thing. We're not deploying Windows 10/10X devices to thousands of people. We're just buying one device and getting on with it. But Microsoft really isn't focused on that. They're focused on building a product for their enterprise and education customers, and that's the role Windows 10X serves, in my opinion. That seems to be where it's most at home. It's enterprises asking, we love Windows, we love the idea of Chrome OS, a lightweight, secure, modern operating system, but we're familiar with Windows. Can you provide a product just like Chrome OS? And Microsoft is saying, yes, here is Windows 10X.
Yeah. There's a lot that goes into it. And this also goes, I always find it funny when people are like, they want consumer choice. They want Microsoft to compete. Half of you probably listening to this are like mad Microsoft gave up on Windows Phone. How dare they give it up? And then when it comes to them trying to do like 10X, you're like, why bother? Why? It's like, don't we want choice on the market? Shouldn't we evaluate what's better for, I don't want Microsoft to be like, oh, no, screw 10X. By the way, all our audience and customers, go use Chrome OS. Like, that's a weird message to send.
Yeah.
And I know people are like, oh, Chrome is, big in education. And I mentioned this in a little asterisk. Yeah, in the United States, Chrome OS is big in education. It's not like all encompassing. Windows is also doing well and it's been increasing market share in education as well at the expense of Apple, who's been kind of losing. When we go to Europe and other places, yeah, Chrome OS is still rising, but Windows is actually still pretty big overseas. So it's not like the market is done. And even still, it doesn't mean Microsoft wants to tell its customers, we got nothing. We were going to try this 10X thing, but some people in YouTube comments were like, isn't it too late? So we were like, yeah, it is too late, so we're not doing it. Like, that's not a good message to send. And we've talked about why Windows 10S exists. 10S is not a solution. It's a temporary method to solve a problem, a long-term problem, which is how do you get a version of Windows that is easier to manage for IT and both at the education level as well as first line workers. Yeah. But
this is a good question as well. Why is Microsoft moving so slowly with Windows 10 compared to Chrome OS and Mac OS? The short answer is because Windows 10 is old. Windows 10, as we have talked about many times, is based on an operating system released 25, 30 years ago. It's based on Windows NT that's been around for donkey's years. Chrome OS, Mac OS, well, I guess maybe Mac OS isn't, iOS specifically, are much more modern operating systems, and they can move faster. They're more nimble and adaptive, and that's the whole point of Windows Core OS and indeed Windows 10X by extension. Windows 10X can be updated just like that. Its update system is so quick that it only takes 30 seconds to reboot after full feature updates. That's how nimble it is. And Microsoft, I have seen documents that suggest that in the future, Microsoft will get to a point where they're confident enough where they can just roll out feature updates whenever they want, twice a year, 4 times a year, once a year. It doesn't matter because the update is so not a big deal that it doesn't matter. Whereas right now in Windows 10, updating Windows 10 requires replacing manually, well, automatically, I guess, but replacing all of the system files in the System32 folder and elsewhere on your hard drive, bit by bit, because there is no offline partition, there's no mirror partition. It has to manually do all of it, and it's more risky as well because there's a possibility of data loss. And the existing Windows was just never intended to be updated in this way. They've definitely improved it, but it's definitely forcing something that didn't want to be updated like this to be updated in the way it has been.
We should also kind of just point out quickly, although there are Microsoft services on Chrome OS devices, one of those that's not planned is Edge. Edge is not coming to Chrome OS. They've said this publicly on Twitter, which I thought was interesting. And while those services exist on Chrome OS, the argument Microsoft would make and why they make their own devices is those services will run better on their own devices. That's kind of one of the reasons why Duo is going to be a thing. It's this idea of productivity as well as Microsoft services is going to be better integrated on it. And it's really for people who love and like Android, and people who are part of Microsoft 365. If you're not either one of those, you're on iOS and you don't really use Microsoft Surfaces. Surface Duo is a weird sell, not an
Yeah.
impossible one. I've heard a lot of people on Apple saying they want to switch to it, but that's not where Microsoft's going after. So, if you're already part of Microsoft Teams and Microsoft 365 and Office, and you're using that in education, having a device that can plug into it really simple and work with remote device management abilities is a key selling point. And Microsoft can't control that. Once it goes to Chrome OS, it kind of hits a wall, right? They can only do so much. They can't be like, oh, we'll put into settings some device management things. It's like, it's always going to be external because it's Google's operating system. When they have their own, they can build all this stuff natively. And, when you look at things like Intune, which if you're a consumer, you don't know what Intune is or don't see the value in it. But for IT departments, having Intune and Intune devices that are really deeply integrated is kind of a big thing. One of the cool things in Windows 10 on ARM is the ability to control the cellular stuff via Intune and remotely. So like you can deploy devices to people and control their SIMs and sign them up for eSIM and do all this kind of stuff. You can deploy apps, you can reset devices. Like that stuff is important. And having your own hardware and operating system is the key to that. It's the last link to it. Microsoft wants to be a services company up to a point. They also want to have the full lineup, and that's why they do Surface at all and why they're going to do 10X.
Right, I guess we should move on to our next topic, Intel 11th gen. So alongside this, I guess not alongside, but in the same week that Qualcomm announced its new HCX Gen 2, Intel announced its 11th gen mobile processors as well. So these are the first Tiger Lake designs aimed at notebooks, which are delivering sizable gains in performance. The biggest news, of course, is the new Iris Xe graphics platform, which is twice as fast as the integrated graphics on the Intel 10th gen chips. In fact, Intel says that you will be able to play games like Far Cry, New Dawn, and Hitman 2 in 1080p using the Intel Iris Xe integrated graphics on 11th gen, which is quite a big deal. So this is sort of kind of going head to head to AMD's Ryzen 4000 chips, which touted epic graphics performance in a mobile chip, right? This is sort of going along the same lines here. So apparently the Iris Xe graphics platform offers a similar level of performance as the GeForce GTX 1050 Ti. So that's a big claim, I think, and I think this is going to make the competition between AMD and Intel in the laptop space very interesting. So otherwise, in other areas, it's based on the 10 nanometer node. And is 2.7 times faster at photo editing, according to Intel. What a weird thing to say. Oh, by the way, 2.7 times faster at photo editing. But yes, it will be coming to a whole bunch of laptops, including Dell, HP, Asus, Razer, Samsung, and others releasing notebooks later this year. Noticed Microsoft isn't on that list, which is kind of upsetting, but oh well. There's also hardware level support for Dolby Vision and the AV1 codec. And I'm literally just skimming through this as we go. It's consistent responsiveness on battery, system wake from sleep in less than 1 second, 9 or more hours of real-world battery life on systems with Full HD displays, fast charging with up to 4-hour charge in under 30 minutes on systems with Full HD displays. So, I don't know if you've read too much into this, Dan. What are your thoughts on this update so far?
Yeah, so this is, I know we've been bullish on AMD this year. And for good reason. The performance on their chips is very good for the Ryzen 4000 series and mobile. And the value is there too. They are legitimately cheaper than Intel. And that's a great value proposition. And we're seeing more of these devices. HP has some new Elite books, the 845, which I believe is coming in October, are variants of the 840, which is actually coming out soon. I'm getting actually one of those in for a review. So we're seeing a lot more uptake, and that's good for AMD. And I wrote an article talking about how AMD is catching up to Intel, and this is going to be a good year for them. But Intel's advantage is sort of this. One, they have a lot of the enterprise market kind of locked up, and that's going to be tough for AMD to compete with. They will, but it's hard. Intel is there's kind of an argument to be made in Ultrabooks it's fast enough. I know it's technically not ever always true, right? Um, I've never turned down more speed, and I'm sure no one else here has either. At the same time, if you're using like a Core i7, um, you know, U series processor, 10th gen right now, and you're running Windows, you're probably not thinking to yourself, God, this thing is so slow. Um, no, it's actually been very good performance. Intel's problem has been GPU, and that's what this kind of really addresses. That's always been AMD's advantage. Now, if their promises hold up, this is going to be kind of a really big deal. And that's where they've been kind of focusing. So that's going to be fun to watch because as cool it is to throw an NVIDIA RTX chip into, GPU into your device, it's way more room, way more thermals, way more power usage. Like there's a reason why there are workstations and gaming laptops and then there are just straight up ultrabooks. So I'm hopeful for that. But the other advantage Intel has right now over AMD is the stuff you rattled off. The AI, the Dolby Vision, the codec support, the quicker on times. They've been really focusing on sort of the modern PC experience. The idea, like when you open the lid, how fast that display turns on and how quickly Windows Hello, logs you in. Surface Laptop 3 with Intel right now is very much like this. As soon as that lid is just gets to see that camera, it's already logged you in. It's super, and the resume time is very quick. Intel's been really laser focused on all these peripheral experiences that are making the PC more like a smartphone. And this also competes against Qualcomm, of course. I've said this before that a lot of the advantages for Qualcomm, Intel is basically trying to mimic it, and they are catching up to it. But this ability to focus on the finesse of the operating system and the laptop experience on Ultrabooks is Intel's advantage right now. They have this ability to really worry about these little extra features. Qualcomm is doing this a little bit too. They already have AI. They build AI into their chipsets. It's why only the Surface Pro X now does this eye adjustment feature where like right now I'm looking at the camera, but I'm not looking at my display. Now I'm looking at my display. And when I'm doing that, if I do that during an actual conference call, it looks weird. So, Intel is able to focus on that stuff. And that's going to be kind of fun to watch on these new laptops is all those little bells and whistles, Dolby Vision, Thunderbolt 4. That's huge, right? Thunderbolt 4 is coming built onto these devices. Wi-Fi 6. Intel controls a lot of the Wi-Fi 6 market right now. So when you get an Intel chip, you're kind of getting all this stuff, all these little extra bells and whistles. AMD right now, mostly focused on the core experience. They're focused on performance and value. And listen, that's a good thing to sell. I'm glad it's there. But Intel is doing its own thing. That's why I'm not writing off Intel. I don't think anyone else should as well. So that's what I think, Zach.
Good. That's all I've got.
Yeah. Well, this will help the Surface line.
Yeah, it will. Because I assume these will be what's in the next Pro and possibly 13-inch laptop. And I guess the book, because the book probably won't be updated for another 2 years. We're probably on like Gen 13 by then.
But yeah, it's not all raw performance. I know a lot of people like to focus on that, but I'm telling you, all these bells and whistles is what makes laptop experiences for me more interesting. So,
what about graphics cards, Dan?
Yeah, NVIDIA's they're like AMD. They're having another just blowout year. I've been on a couple financial shows talk about NVIDIA. NVIDIA is really nice because they've actually been able to sort of diversify their portfolio. So that while they do gaming stuff, they also do server stuff. They do car stuff. Like they're kind of really all over the place right now. And what they're working on is doing well. Gaming for them and the GPU stuff for the PC is also huge. Like GPUs have just gone through the roof. PC gaming is still massive. I know for years people are like, oh, consoles, the PC market's going to die. The PC gaming market is the only PC segment that has consistently done better every quarter, every year, forever. There was never the moment of like that market not doing well versus like the post-PC fear that everybody had with the iPad. So NVIDIA announced the RTX 3000 series, which was totally expected. I don't think it was necessarily expected, both some of the competitive pricing that they offered, as well as just how advanced and more powerful these were. I kind of, and until I get to actually use it myself, it is all kind of theoretical, right? So I don't get too excited over it. It's like, it's kind of like Intel 11th gen. It's like, all right, it's faster than last year's. But these actually do seem to be significantly faster without necessarily completely pushing up the price ridiculously. Now, the 3090 got a lot of attention because I believe it's $1,499 or $1,400, which that's expensive for a GPU. It's also huge, but this promises 8K gaming at 60 frames per second. Most of us are just getting used to 4K gaming. Heck, I'm on a 144 hertz 2K display, and I've been okay with it, right? There's really no point right now doing 4K gaming because you can maybe get 30 frames per second or, in that range. That said, going to shout out myself here. I did review the Razer Blade Pro 17 this week, which does have a 4K 120 hertz display, and the RTX 2080 Super. And it's a beast of a laptop. That you can actually, if you adjust the graphics, you can actually do 50 to 70 frames per second at 4K. If you want to hit the 120 frames per second, though, you're going to need to drop it to 2K. But this whole 3000 series, especially the 3090, does really push things to a new level. I think this is very exciting. The market was, everybody responded very well to it. NVIDIA's, in the RTX stuff, the ray tracing is getting improvements. I don't want to go into too much detail here, but it's going to be like what you expect for the second gen of that, which is they're fixing a lot of the drawbacks of RTX right now. So we have all this stuff written up on Windows Central. I don't get excited about chips when they're down the line. I only care when I'm using them. And so when we use them, we'll, write our reviews and tell you what we really think if it's hype or not. But this does seem to be a pretty big advancement in GPU, and it's nice to see.
Every time a new GPU is announced, I become sadder at my puny 965M in the Surface
you're pretty far behind.
I know, but it's not even that because wasn't it like the 960 series was like the last before like a huge jump in performance, and then it's just been hanging around there now. Like it's like the original Surface Studio was just left behind. Like even my Surface Book 3 with its 1660 Ti, it's more powerful than my Studio.
Oh yeah. Its 1660 Ti lacks the ray tracing stuff, but it's a really good GPU. Like, I mean, go read my review for Surface Book 3 if you don't believe me. And I put a looping video of me playing Doom. Like the Doom Eternal is pretty enjoyable on Surface Book. So
I might have to buy myself a Surface Studio 2 just so I can have better graphics. Because it's a 1070 in the Studio 2, right? Which is still it's terrible. I mean, it's good enough for what I do.
It's true, but when you get to I don't play nearly enough games. I have a 2080 Ti here, and when I do play games, it's pretty impressive. I was able to do the new Flight Simulator at like all the max ultra graphics.
Oh really?
And still get I think I got about 40 to 50 frames.
I just primarily need it for this podcast because we stream it and that uses the GPU, and also to render video. I've noticed that I might as well render video on my book because it's faster than the Studio. Sad times.
And besides that news, wrapping up sort of IFA, there were a bunch of laptops announced too. I don't have them all in front of me, unfortunately. Lenovo had quite a few, as they always do. They are once again revising. Lenovo has been very schizophrenic. I shouldn't say that. I shouldn't use mental illness terms as a derogatory. It's not very PC. See, I'm trying to be, conscious of this stuff. I'll just say they've been all over the place in terms of naming and trying to figure out what to call their laptops. So they have the Yoga 940, and that was a whole thing because Yoga was a specific like sub-brand. There was only a couple of them, and then they diversified Yoga for like the high end. So the 900 series was sort of the high end Yogas, and then they have like Yoga 700s and I don't know what else. Now they're doing it Yoga 9i. They drop in the number part, and they're going to be just calling it like the 9i and something else, i9 Flex or Thin. I forgot. all you need to know about these is, I'm a huge fan of the Yoga 940 and the 930 from the year before that. These are the Yogas that have the soundbar hinge, which is such a clever design. They also have a siloed pen that comes out, which is really cool. And these are kind of just all really nice, all-in-one convertible laptops. Still running 16:9 display. Not a fan of that, but what's new this year is they're going to have one with a kind of like a leather top to it. So they're, again, experimenting with materials. And this is a theme you'll see in a lot of the premium laptops. Microsoft kind of did it with Alcantara. So they have one that's kind of a leather thing. It looks really cool. But what really makes this laptop really interesting is the deck. So the part below the keyboard is all glass, which is super interesting. And the trackpad is haptic. It is not
Wow.
not a physical clicking mechanical trackpad.
Finally, someone on Windows did it.
Yeah, so this is, if you've used an Apple MacBook, they have their Force trackpad, what do they call it? Force Touch, I forgot what they call it. But it's a trackpad that doesn't physically move, but it has a haptic engine. And boy, as good as Microsoft is good at hinges, Apple is good at haptics. And I have a Apple laptop or two laying around. That trackpad is really good at fooling you into thinking it's clicking. It's pretty crazy. Mm-hmm. The benefit, though, to that design is, one, you don't have a physical moving part. And you saw this crop up. The Dell XPS 15 this year, the 9500, launched, and they had an issue. And Dell's not immune to this. They've had this problem before when the trackpad was kind of loose and rattling and wasn't very good. Even my review unit had it. They've since fixed it. But that's the problem with the physical touchpad, is it does need to be lined up perfectly, and it is subject to quality control issues. It could also physically break. It can change over time. There's also the fact that the way it clicks is it has a sweet spot in the center where it clicks and registers, usually at the lower corners, but then the upper part is the hinge area, and it doesn't click. And so you have dead zones on the trackpad. Now, they've kind of gotten around this by making the trackpad so large that it feels you have more space. But when you have a haptic trackpad, the whole thing can register clicks. There's no dead zones on it. It's beautiful, and there's no inconsistency. It's the same in one corner as the other corner as the center. And that kind of experience has been missing from Windows laptops. As good as the precision drivers are, this is a technology. And I've said before in this podcast, companies like Lenovo, HP, I'm not even sure about Microsoft, don't actually really design the trackpad. They actually get it from like Synaptics and similar fingerprint readers. They don't design those. They buy them from Synaptics, and then maybe they modify them and customize them a little bit, but they get what's available. My guess is Synaptics probably is come up with a haptic trackpad, and you see a company like Lenovo being one of the first customers to buy it. That's what we're going to get here. Huawei, I believe, is also doing this, but since they don't sell them in the US anymore, and they're just kind of harder to come by because of the embargo stuff. But I believe Huawei is doing this as well. I do predict and expect we'll see other OEM manufacturers do this. Doesn't mean the first gen is going to be perfect, right? There could be problems with them. And that's maybe why you'll see some companies hold back on this, at least for the first gen. But this is a big advancement. This is one area where we've seen audio get better, displays have gotten better. The trackpad, though, the physicalness of it, it's going to be a big change. And the design, because of this, when you look at the Lenovo, it's just this like beautiful, seamless. There's no divots. It's just like this like glass kind of thing. Going to be really interesting to try, but it's very futuristic looking, very elegant looking. I'm pretty excited about it. So
awesome stuff.
Yep. So I believe that's going to kind of do it for us, right?
Yeah, that's pretty much it for the week. I'm still excited for next week because it's Duo week next week.
I'm less excited because it just means
you have to write.
This last week it's been really diving into the hardware, the software, trying things, updates. I forgot if I mentioned this, I am using my Galaxy Active 2 watch with Duo. I can talk about that. It works beautifully. If you need a smartwatch, you need Samsung Pay, because there's no NFC. Go get yourself an Active 2. I think this is the best smartwatch you can get for an Android device, unless you're hooked on Fitbit. But yeah, Active 2, really, really well done. Works beautifully for notifications and all that stuff. So, but yeah, I got to get to work on writing the review. And yes, we will have a video in theory. I have to shoot that. We'll see how that goes. If it sucks as a video, I'm sorry. I'll try my best, but yeah. Otherwise, you can. That's gonna wrap it up. We're gonna do Q&A now. So if you have questions, fire them off. We'll try to get to those. If you're listening to this recorded, of course, you don't get to hear that part. We have to drop you off here, unfortunately. But you can join us every Friday, 2:30 p.m. Eastern Time, youtube.com/Windows Central. And you can join our live chat and see our faces. You can also go rewatch the broadcast there as well. Other than that, follow me on Twitter, Daniel_Rubino, Rubino, on Twitter and Instagram. And you can follow Zach at ZACBOWDEN. Of course, we answer questions there as well. And you can follow us for news and all that exciting stuff. Other than that, don't forget to wear a mask, wash your hands, don't forget to vote. I don't know, eat your veggies, do whatever you need to, hug your animals, all that good stuff. Thanks for joining us, and we'll talk to you next time. Take care, everyone.
Sweet.
And it looks like I recorded this week. I don't have that issue.
Does Zach think Duo 2 will have a matte black version? Asking for a friend. It's too early to tell what colors they'll ship. It could very easily depend on how good or bad the Duo does. If the Duo does well, then I think they might be more confident in releasing more versions of the Duo 2. But we'll have to wait and see. It's too early to know what colors they're planning.
I will say, since I could talk about the hardware, the beauty of white right now is that this is a glass display, Gorilla Glass 5, all around. It is, you can technically scratch it. I actually did get a very minor scratch on it, but you can't see it mostly. Like, you really have to like reflect it in the light and stare down and, oh, wait, is there something there? Because white doesn't show scratches at all. It's very good at hiding anything. Now, I do have those ZAG screen protectors on. And the irony of those is where you're covering glass with plastic, which means I can actually get more fine scratches on this now because it's scratching the plastic. It just won't scratch the glass. But that's sort of the benefit of having this. Whereas when you go with a black, you're going to know scratches a lot easier. So that's just something to consider. That's one reason why I think they went with white. Not saying there aren't, well, I'll talk about it in the review, any other issues.
Sorry, I'm writing an email.
Wow, sorry.
When do you expect control panel to disappear from Windows? When modern settings has it all? And to be honest, I don't think it will ever disappear from Windows 10. If you want it to disappear, that's what Windows 10X is for. But I think when the control panel is going to stick around at least for another few years, easily.
Do you think they'll skip releasing Neo 1 and just go straight to Neo 2? Well, if they never released Neo 1, there is no Neo 2 technically. I don't know. I don't know if there's plans to do major revisions to Neo 1.
Well, it will obviously depend how long it's delayed for, and whether or not the chip inside it has come a long way since the original Lakefield that was supposed to ship in it, right?
And I don't think it's going to, because they built Neo, and I'm pretty positive they co-built it with Intel. That's why I had someone go, maybe they'll put a new ARM chip in it. I'm pretty positive Neo is like co-engineered with Intel as it was supposed to be sort of a platform demo of Lakefield. But Lakefield's like a new platform for Intel. I don't think it's going to change in the next few years, meaning even if it does get a newer version of that chip, it's not going to be a radical rechange of the board. I don't know what they need to do for the hardware in Neo 2 to convince you that it's better. Like, well, what's the flaw of Neo 1? And if you say bezels, I'm going to really
kill you.
The bezel thing, like, I can tell you, I know people want thinner bezels, like even on Duo. You can't really see the bezels here. It's kind of hard. But I'm telling you, device this thin and this kind of small, those bezels, when I'm doing this all the time and switching postures, the bezels help, right? It's actually nice to have. So I don't think they can get rid of those. They can maybe make them slightly thinner, but you're not going to be edge to edge. If you do that, unless they come up with a software solution, they come up with a way that it knows when you're touching the screen because you're flipping positions, it shouldn't register touch. I'm telling you, even with the thick bezels on Duo, like you got to kind of watch out when you're gripping it. It's not easy. Does anyone think 10X needs to be rebranded name-wise? No. I, you guys overthink names way too much. I know, like you think it's everything. You know what matters is the product good. It doesn't matter what. I mean, Apple proves this over and over again. They literally have some of the dumbest names. iPad. We all ripped on the name for iPads. How that was just AirPods. Like all these are stupid names, but it doesn't matter because they're kind of good products that people are happy with them. It doesn't matter. No one's 10X is not going to live or die based on its name. Oh, it didn't sell well because people didn't like the name. That's not going to happen. It's going to live or die whether it's a good product or not. That's it. That's you guys really just fixate on names so much. That's just not how it is. I think that's probably the least important thing.
Any news on improved latency on the Surface Pen anytime soon? So not as far as I'm aware. I think that will depend on upping the hertz of the display as well. Obviously, a faster refresh rate on the display means that the reaction of the pen is quicker. So I think Microsoft is waiting for that in addition to updating the pen with faster latency as well.
Yeah, I feel like even when they revised the pen the last time, like there were no leaks on that. That was just sort of like they even had that processor that they invented that goes below the display to help. So what I'm saying is like I don't see why they wouldn't revise. I think we're up for a revision. I don't think we're going to hear leaks about that. I feel like it's a real low-level kind of program. Someone's asking, do we expect Surface Go 3 to go on ARM? So that's the dream, right? Zach and I both would like that. We think it kind of makes sense. And as much as I thought that would happen, I'm going to go on record saying I don't believe Surface Go will ever be ARM. I think it's always going
No, I hate you. Why
Yeah.
would you even say such horrible things?
Yeah, I just don't see. It's rare for companies to swap out chip architectures in a range of a device. You've seen it with like, let's already look at what Microsoft has done. By the way, this is back when I thought they could was before the Pro X. So the Pro X is a Windows 10 on ARM device, and they made that for two reasons. One, because they couldn't make that device with Intel, and they kind of wanted to do it, but it was also so they can embrace ARM, right? Get an ARM device out there that has the Surface branding on it. But notice they didn't rebrand us. They didn't make a Surface Pro. When the rumors first came out, and Zach and I were talking about this, there were thoughts it might be a Surface Pro that was ARM, that was going to be the LTE model. And that turned out to be completely wrong. They just did their own offshoot with Pro X. And then with AMD, they finally embraced AMD. But what did they do? Did they replace the AMD? Did they put AMD into the 13-inch? No, they announced a 15-inch and went, that's our AMD one, right? So every time they're going to do a new processor, they do basically a new device. There's no evidence to see them swapping out current processors for a completely different one. And I don't think Go is going to do that. Maybe they could do a Go X, but I don't think that market is like big enough right now to split it. But then again, they kind of did it with the Pro, so who knows? But no, I really don't think Go 3 will switch to ARM unless they can like get one-to-one compatibility with apps.
We're still expecting a Surface Pro 8 with Intel and a Pro X with ARM, right? So I'm not hearing. So because of COVID, things are all up in the air, and and I'm hearing now that a Pro 8, not X, so specifically the standard Pro 8, isn't on the cards for this year now. I could be wrong on that, of course, but I've not heard anything specific about it for this sort of end of year refresh of hardware. I've got the Surface Pro X with the new chip and in platinum, possibly the Sparty stuff, which I'll hopefully be able to detail more next week, and what's the other one? There's I think a black. So the Go 2 is getting a refresh, not specs wise. I think it'll be exactly the same on the inside, but I think there's a new color coming. I think it'll be available in black. But we'll have to wait and see.
You're doing the old switcheroo.
Yeah.
Go gets black, Pro X gets platinum. Yeah, I think there's two things that people overfixate on when you're listening to a podcast like this and you're kind of that core audience. I think people worry too much about names of devices and worry too much about specs of devices. And I can tell you, neither technically matter for most people. I get it's a fun thing to fixate on. Lord knows people on Twitter like to remind me how the Snapdragon 855 is a last gen chip. I get it. The question is the experience bad? And the only thing that matters at the end of the day on a device is the experience bad, and do people enjoy it? That's it. Doesn't matter what the name is. If the product's good, it'll do well.
Is there a Studio 3 on the plans? Again, like the Pro 8, it was originally planned for end of this year, but because of COVID, I think Microsoft sees that there's no real place for a device as luxury as the Surface Studio, which will likely be starting at $3,500. It makes sense for them to sit on that until markets have sort of settled and people have jobs once again.
Right. Dan looks a little disappointed when he looked at the Duo. Jeez, you guys read way too much into body language. Maybe it's just Friday. I've had a long week and I'm tired because I just did a whole podcast. You guys really need to stop fixating on this weird stuff. I'm not sending signals either. Yeah.
What is this voice typing coming to Windows 10? Is it some speech to text? Pretty much, yeah. So when you press it, you can start talking, and the keyboard will translate what you're saying into text on whatever text field you're in.
When will the first Windows 10X device, I imagine, be released? Or, I don't know, you just said...
I think, I guess early spring, right? Spring 2021 is when they're hoping to have 10X out the door. It's supposed to be done in December, and will start shipping on devices in the first half of 2021.
Yeah, so it makes sense possibly at CES or Mobile World Congress. Microsoft may talk about stuff, but right, they're going to announce the OS and new hardware, I imagine, with it. Not necessarily Microsoft hardware, Surface hardware, but from OEM partners. It's kind of like how it's been going, right? Microsoft took 3 generations before they did an ARM device. So,
is the Pro X still relevant in 2020 or 2021? Yes, the Pro X is the future of the Surface product line. It represents what Microsoft is aiming for when it comes to Surface and indeed Windows. ARM is the future in a lot of areas. Intel isn't going away, of course, but Microsoft is really taking this ARM thing seriously. That they understand that it's where innovation is taking place in the chip world, slowly but surely, of course. Yeah, the Pro X isn't going anywhere. That's definitely Microsoft's sort of North Star for where they want all of their hardware to sort of go.
Do you think Pro X and regular... Sorry, what were you saying?
Sorry, you go ahead.
I was going to say, do you think Pro X and regular Pro line will merge sooner than later, as an ARM will soon replace regular chipsets? No, I don't. I think these lines will always be separate. I don't see ARM necessarily completely replacing. For some, it will replace Intel, and that percentage will change over time. But I think Intel will sort of always have that advantage of, for one, they don't have to run an emulation. Like, I think if you're running ARM, you're doing x86 emulation, you're always going to take a performance hit compared to what Intel does natively. That's just the nature of the game. The real question becomes, how relevant are x86 apps for certain workers and people going forward? And that could shift. But no, I always see these as going to be kind of different. It's just like asking, like, will AMD ever replace Intel? Like, for some people, yeah, but I don't think either company is going to go away anytime soon.
Should we expect Neo in holiday 2021? No hope for an earlier release. I think holiday 2021 might be early as well. Windows 10X for dual screen is scheduled spring 2022. So in theory, Neo can't launch earlier than that. But, you know, things can change. Things can be brought forward if things are looking good. And if the market conditions have improved and 10X has launched without any major hiccups, then I think it's possible that it could be early at holiday 2021, but I'm doubting it. The internal schedule currently says spring 2022.
What about the Duo and Surface Slim Pen integration? What about it? Like, it's not a real question there. You want me to talk for 20 minutes about the Surface Slim Pen? It's a pen. You don't need it.
I think they're asking about the software experiences, which of course you cannot talk about.
Yeah, I mean, I just can tell you what Microsoft has said publicly. Just they follow the standard Android stuff. There's a reason why they didn't send the pen to reviewers for Duo. I don't think it's a big part of the story right now. If you really want to, that's where the Note 20, I think, is going to be a better device for some people.
Mm-hmm. Someone on Twitter is asking me, how are you getting the Duo next week as someone outside the US? I have a friend who lives in the US who's getting it, who I'm getting it shipped to, who will then ship it to me. So make friends in the US, or go through one of those services like Big Apple Buddy.
The downside if you do that, of course, is you don't get warranty support.
Of course, yeah. If my Duo breaks, that's it. It's game over.
I should also point out, I should have mentioned this on the podcast, that Microsoft will have a program. If you do drop it and shatter the glass, they're going to have a program to replace the glass on these devices. It will be free. It's not part of your warranty, of course, but they will. I'd be also worried, though. I mean, if I dropped this on pavement, yeah, the glass would shatter, but I'm pretty positive I'd damage the physical body too. So, but there will be sort of solutions there.
Can you please clarify the current situation when it comes to Windows 10 and ARM? What's missing right now? So what's missing? It's not a lot missing. It's just the state of things. The one key thing that is missing, of course, is x86 64-bit desktop app emulation. Once that hits, then technically Windows 10 and ARM isn't missing anything. At that point, it's just the experience and how good it behaves and performs. The problem with emulation is that it takes a toll on performance, and one of the biggest complaints with app emulation on Windows 10 ARM so far has been that the emulated apps are slow. This can only really be proved with, I guess, software optimization, but primarily hardware optimization with faster, more powerful chips. And the Gen, I guess that's where they're going with the HCX, right? The HCX Gen 2 is more powerful, and in theory means that it does a better job at emulating the x86 programs. But that's pretty much all it's missing right now is x86 64-bit emulation. I guess they could try and go the Apple route, which is, I think they don't emulate on macOS, do they? I don't remember now. It's different on macOS, and apparently it's better, but I think it's a macOS unique thing.
Do you think Apple's rumored release next week will spoil the release of Surface Duo reviews? And is it deliberate or coincidence? I feel like it's completely irrelevant. Yeah. Unless Apple's announcing a dual screen ultra thin device next week, I don't see how it's relevant at all. If you're already on iOS and you love Apple and you're in that ecosystem, the iPhone 12 or whatever comes is going to be your next device. It's just that. If you're in the market for a new phone, want to switch to Android, and you think you'd benefit from a dual screen experience, then you get Surface Duo. I don't see those two things as necessarily overlapping. I don't think people are waiting on Duo, but they're going to see the iPhone 12 and be like, oh, I'm going to get that instead. Or I just feel like there's nothing going to ruin Duo. The only thing that's going to ruin Duo are just going to be terrible reviews and people not buying it. And even then, I don't think it's the end of the world for it because it's a Gen 1 device. It's going to be more interesting to see where the device is in 3 months, 6 months, and 12 months than it will be on day one, because I don't think a lot of people are necessarily going to buy it on day one. So, and related to this, should you get the Duo or Fold 2? I don't really see this as... I know everybody likes to compare them, but they're not really the same.
No, yeah.
Fold 2.
I wanted to tackle this as well. They are entirely different devices, and I'll show you. Look, the Fold 2 is you should buy the Fold 2 if you want a foldable Android tablet.
Yes.
But that doesn't mean you're going to have a good experience. The hardware, don't get me wrong, sublime. The Galaxy Fold and I guess the Galaxy Fold 2, I've not touched the 2. The hardware is amazing, don't get me wrong. The idea of a foldable screen is fantastic. But the software is really what it lets it down. Like, I'll show you, for example, this is Instagram on my Galaxy Fold right now. Look at the app. It's cut off on the left and right. It's essentially just the phone app blown up. And you will find this is the case in a lot of apps on Android. Android does a terrible job at catering to tablets, even if they're foldable screens. And there's nothing Samsung can do about that. That's not Samsung's fault. That's just the Android app ecosystem's fault. Duo has an advantage there, whereas because it's two phone-sized screens, the apps just behave like normal. They're running on a phone-sized display. The only time where you'll see it do anything more than that is when you try to span it, and most apps won't support spanning, or at least they will span, but they won't have a UI dedicated to the dual screen. But Microsoft's apps will. But in most cases, you can just use that one app on a single screen, and it behaves just like any other phone. And that, to me, is the biggest selling point. I've been using the Galaxy Fold for 8 months now, or 9 months, and I've come to realize that the Fold is fundamentally flawed because of Android. The Duo doesn't have that problem.
Yep. And I would also say that what Microsoft is doing on Duo is within the guidelines of Android. So they're not doing anything special. The little things they're doing special to it are getting piped back into the Android code and through Google, versus how Samsung kind of brute forces stuff like the S Pen. The S Pen has a lot of support on the Notes series, but it's all Samsung special sauce, right? That's why like Microsoft doesn't have like the S Pen windows that pop up, because it's a Samsung thing. The downside, what Samsung does, what Samsung does is technically easy, but it's reliant, as Zach just pointed out, on the rest of the market catering and bending to the will of Samsung to complete that experience. What Microsoft is doing is working with Google through Android itself. It's a slower process. It tends to not be as exciting, but the goal here is like all the changes that Microsoft wants to do with, like, say, spanning across dual screens is something other OEMs can do. And so when you get more devices out there, you get more developers on board, everybody benefits. So it's not a special Microsoft thing. It's a very different style of approach. And again, as Zach pointed out, it's a foldable tablet that you can fit in your pants. The Duo is not a tablet device. It is a straight up phone device. And I'll say Duo technically supports pen. Fold does not support pen. But they're just different. It's not one's better than the other. It depends on what you're looking to do with a device. And I know Fold 2 can do like 3 apps at once, and it does this thing where side by side.
It's rubbish.
And I get that. Yeah, I mean, there's a reason why Android used to have this feature, and it kind of still does, where you can split screen apps.
You can. It's on the Fold 1 as well, and it's rubbish. I don't know why they're advertising it on the Fold 2. It's no different.
I believe Samsung does their own version of it now, but it's not in native Android anymore because it just wasn't good and no one used it. I never used it. It was always weird. I always did it by accident. Like, it was like, why is my screen split suddenly? There's something to be said about having physical screens that give you that demarcation versus a software solution. Some people are okay with the software solution. I'm just saying it's a different experience, and it's not necessarily.
I never used the split screen function on the Fold because, again, the software experience is rubbish. Initiating it is poor. It's not intuitive. The point, and Panos says this himself in his thing, like with the bezel and the fact that it's actual 2 separate screens, it's defined real estate. That's just how it is. You work around it, and you don't have to think about it. Whereas on the Galaxy Fold, if I want to split 2 apps, I have to think about it. I go, right, now I need to open up multitasking. I need to tap and hold. I need to drag this into that corner. Now I need to find the other app in the multitasking list. Oh, it's not in the multitasking list. I have to close this window and start the whole process again because it sucks. That's just the Galaxy Fold is a good foldable tablet, and but I say good fold. It's a foldable tablet, but because it's Android, it's a bad tablet. That's the problem. It's a win-lose situation for Samsung. Fantastic hardware. Honestly, I feel like the Galaxy Fold 2 would be better as a Windows device. But oh well.
2 questions here. 1, do you need a smartwatch to complete the Duo experience? No, absolutely not. I just connected my Active 2 up literally last night. I've been using it the whole week without a smartwatch. It depends what experience you want. I got away from wearing a smartwatch because I don't like necessarily getting notifications on my watch. Now you can control the notifications. So maybe only a text message here or a phone call or something like that. I never felt I needed that with Duo. Same reason my Z Flip also, I never felt like I needed it, even though it was the same process. You need to open it up really to make it useful. I think for people who want all of their notifications and want to instantly know and just need to be like that, sure, smartwatch is nice. Same if you use tap to pay. I got on record many times. I don't use tap to pay, but if you rely on it, having a Samsung Pay watch is pretty useful. But I don't think it's necessary. After the review, I'm going to stop probably wearing my Act 2 watch. I'll probably use it if I ever return to doing live events again. It's useful for when I need to know something right away, and live chats. But in my normal day-to-day life, I've been fine just opening up the device when things come in. It's not a big deal. But it depends on you, what you want. Some people like the idea of, and Panos has talked about it, and I've seen other people talk about, when you close it, you're kind of done. You get to focus on whatever you want to focus on. And for some people, they want that in their life. Other people want constant 24/7 on their phone. Then this is probably not going to be your device.
A few people in the chat saying, why don't they just do a single foldable screen but with a virtual bezel, so the same functionality but with one display? And there's a couple of reasons I can think of. The first of which, people will instantly go, I want it to open full screen. Why is it opening on half of the screen now? That would be the first one. And the second one would be because you lose the ability to rotate the hinge 360 degrees. Foldable screens aren't like paper. You can't just fold them both ways and it's fine. You can fold it one way, but only in a certain way. You can't just fold it completely. It has to be slightly curved at the end so that you don't snap the display in half. Which is why devices like the Galaxy Fold and the Z Flip have a slight gap, because those displays need room to have that smooth curve when they fold over. And the problem with since the displays don't stretch, you can't fold it back the other way, so it can't fold over the hinge. And that's why the Galaxy Fold and the Z Flip and other foldables with single screen foldable displays aren't 360 degree, they're just 180, because you can only pull the screen so far before you rip it. You don't have that problem with two screens because they aren't attached. You can fold them 360 degrees, no questions asked.
Yep, and I'm trying to work on a story for it, but Microsoft did research and they show that people working on dual screens have a different experience and less cognitive load than working on a single screen or a single screen that's foldable and trying to do multitasking. They've also said people enjoyed it more using a dual screen. It's a different experience. You can try this yourself. It's expensive, but go buy yourself an ultra wide monitor, use that, then set it aside and go get a dual screen setup and see which one you prefer and why. You'll see that it's not the same. I prefer dual screen for my desktop if I need to use it. Ultra wides are weird to me. It's a lot more space and things scale weird. There's weird scaling issues, as Zach just pointed out, in the Fold. So, and plus on folding devices right now, inking is a challenge. It's not impossible, and it won't be impossible forever, of course. It's a solvable thing, but a lot easier to ink on glass screens than it is on the Fold, which doesn't support inking at all. So, and as Zach pointed out, see how flat this is? That's only because it's dual screen and because it has a cool hinge. You don't need to worry about the curve in the glass. So I was asking two questions about the pen. One, can you use the eraser button on the pen to erase stuff? Yes, you can. You don't need to pair it either. And also that Bluetooth button, as far as I know right now, does not do anything on Android. So you don't need to pair the pen. You can just use any Surface Pen and just start writing on the screen and it'll just work. So I was asking about sticking the pen to the magnets again. I don't have the pen in front of me. It's not, they didn't make this so the pen sticks to it with the magnets. That's a side effect because there are magnets in the display. It's not exciting to put a pen on this. I don't know why so many people are fixated on sticking a pen to the Duo.
It is worth mentioning that they did prototype that.
Right.
It was internal prototypes did have that functionality. You could stick it to the front, but they didn't do it for a number of reasons. I think one of them was space, but two, they wanted to sort of charge it as well, and it doesn't. The battery in the Duo is too small for it to also be keeping a pen charged.
Right. And I'm also going to say that it becomes useless as soon as you put it in your pocket.
Yeah, because it just you push it off. Yeah.
You're not, there's no magnet strong enough unless they use those neodymium, what are those things called? The super strong magnets that will screw up everything around you. There's no way that pen's staying on in your pocket or bag. So what's kind of the point for it, right?
Yeah. I will say, as someone who's kind of privy into the original Andromeda vision and also talking to sources about the Duo's development this last year, I will say that the pen has become a significantly less of an important focal point for this device. Originally, Andromeda was all pen. This is a device that is pen orientated, but that very much isn't the case with the final Duo. That the pen is, it's there, but I think afterthought would be an accurate way to describe it.
And I wonder if that's also because they're relying on Android, and Android's pen support is pretty basic. Mm-hmm. Like, they don't control that experience. When they were building Andromeda, the operating system, they could have built it around the pen, controlled the whole stack. And that's the downside of them using Android. Now they're beholden, and they have to move at the pace of Google, hope that the changes that they propose are adopted by Google. Yeah. Someone's saying tap to pay is great during COVID. You know what's better than that? Ordering online. Using an app.
Can you explain the peek mode of Duo? I am not getting it. So if you ever want to just quickly peek at your phone without opening it, that's what peek mode's for. So quickly just open it just a little bit. Time. Shows the date and time. And then you close it again. You don't have to pull the whole thing open just to find out that information.
It may show more info later. It would be cool. I still think it'd be cool if they did a permanent kind of always on display to go to a clock mode. I don't see why they couldn't do that.
That's true.
So you can do the tent mode, put it by your bed. It's just an alarm clock, shows your appointments coming up, plug it in when you go to bed, and there you go. Like, that seems to be very doable. But again, that's what I think this device is exciting, because they can't do that all on day one. We'd be waiting forever. But as they get feedback and hear from people, and they're going to be doing monthly updates, they can start to bring these features online. And I think this interesting story for Duo is going to be what do they do for the next 6 months, the next year? Like, I've heard they have big plans. Let's see what that is. That's why the review coming out this week will be interesting, but it's not the final report on this. It's literally just the start. It's yeah. So hopefully we'll start to see stuff like that.
Weren't there new keyboards and mice coming? Yes, Microsoft does have some new keyboard and mice accessories on the way. I assume they'll be announced in October alongside the new Pro X and whatever else they plan to announce in the fall. When is the Andromeda?
Ultra-wide.
Sorry, Dan, go ahead.
Ultra-wide is the way to go. Just snap to the sides. No, I'll tell you why. Try getting a 4K or 8K ultra-wide display with 144 Hz refresh with HDR. Go find that one and go pay for it, by the way. You know what's cheaper? You can just go out and buy any two displays you want that are 4K, fast refresh, HDR, really high-end, super thin bezels, and go try that. So there's pros and cons to each one. I'm not a fan of the ultra-wide displays. I think they look really weird. And I don't like using them just for normal stuff because I'm not always snapping apps. I like actually having some, and here's the other benefit of having dual displays. You can rotate one. I used to take one of my displays and I'd rotate it vertically, and then I would have like Slack, whatever, so I'd have a really long view. Try doing that on an ultra wide. You can't. So no, the idea that one of these is better than the other is not the case. They each have their pros and cons. So again, I win.
Someone was asking, when is the Andromeda article coming? Probably the week after next, because I want the Duo to come up first, and I want to sort of play with the Duo myself before I put that article out there.
A case with a pen pouch will be good. Yeah, I mean, I don't know how they're going to solve this pen thing on Duo. I really don't. It's too thin to put a siloed pen, if they even had the space, which they don't.
Right.
Maybe they could someday, but it's not going to be a very comfortable pen to use, just like the S Pen isn't very comfortable.
I think it's just going to be one of those things like how the laptop supports pen, but it's like totally... Like, there's nowhere to store it. It's just like, it supports it, but hey, do what you want with it.
Yeah. There is that issue, and I talked about this on the Note 20 Ultra, riding on these smaller devices. The Note 20 Ultra it's weird to ride on. The pen works beautifully. It's a really nice pen. But because of the orientation and the aspect ratio, like...
It's not enough room. Yeah.
Yeah, it doesn't feel like it's not like writing on a big piece of paper. Duo is going to be a little bit better because of the aspect ratio, but it's still weird. I don't know.
Will there be a Surface Uno? No.
Yeah. Weren't there new keyboards and mice coming? Yeah, I mean, so the thing with there's supposed to be the Surface keyboard
Yeah,
without the
I
numpad.
already mentioned it.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Sorry. Yeah.
uh,
That stuff is never announced. They
it's just
just like
there. Yeah,
literally
you're right.
they just put it on their website. Yeah.
Yeah. I want to write apps for Duo. Where do I start? Go to Bing or Google.com and search for Surface Duo SDK. It should be one of the first links.
I want to write apps for Duo. Where do I
I
start?
literally just did that question.
Oh, sorry. I'm not paying attention. I'm reading stuff. Look, it's been a long
Is there an echo in here?
Zach, when does the Andromeda start?
Why does Microsoft always rebuild its apps? With Windows 8, they were all HTML, JavaScript. Then with Windows 10, they were all C Sharp. And now they're all going back to HTML, aka React Native. Well, because I don't know. It's a good question. I think it's because they just go with what they think is right at the time. And
Well,
they're not always right.
Yeah,
Yeah,
but the
HTML has
world's
changed. Yeah.
I mean, the fact is one, web technologies have gotten better.
Mm-hmm.
Two, the older stuff only runs on certain hardware or well on certain hardware. Meanwhile, we're in a world moving to ARM and other types of processors. Three, there are less programmers. Like when it comes to programming and languages, there's ones that are better than others. And by better, I mean some people enjoy programming on one more than the other. And I'm not qualified to tell you which ones are which, but I can tell you I've heard this before where people are like, I like programming this one sucks. It's a nightmare. I've heard JavaScript is pretty terrible. I don't know. But like the world changes in terms of jobs, what people are being trained in, what they're going to school for. If people are going to school and they're training in, web programming and JavaScripts and everything like that, and they're coming out to the workforce, it's hard to find people like in COBOL. Like no one trains in COBOL anymore. So you're not going to go build your app in like an old 20-year-old language. There's also just efficiencies. There's cross-platform considerations.
Yeah.
That's probably the biggest.
That is the biggest one.
Companies come out with a service. They don't want to make their 5 apps across different ecosystems. So they can just consolidate, use a web service, and do it on one. There's a lot of factors. It's not Microsoft just being not knowing what it wants to do. It's trying to keep up with the times.
Yeah, and Microsoft is trying to streamline its resources as well. So building a web app or something based on web technologies means they can write it once and it works on other platforms with little to no changes. It's the true universal Windows platform.
It really is. Yeah, I mean, someone says, there's more web developers than native developers nowadays. Yeah, I mean, and that's just because of the market, right? I said it before with Windows. When was the last time you saw an actual like brand new x86 app?
Exactly.
Yeah. A new one, right? I mean, besides what Adobe occasionally does.
No, because even Adobe's new apps are UWP.
Yeah, that's true. Yep. And using web stuff. So like, there's just like no one's making new stuff. So why would Microsoft continue focusing on that old stuff, right? Any news on Xbox Series X, S, SoC, and Surface device? Maybe Surface Studio or Surface.
I doubt it.
Yeah, I doubt it too.
Those are
consoles are going to
gaming.
be. Yeah, consoles going to be very console. The only thing that's going to be shared with other devices, and it's going to be the platform, the back end, how you develop and write
the
games.
service.
Yeah. We'll be interested to see how much the bumper eats into the bezels of the Duo. It's a good question. I don't think it really does. That said, I can tell you some screen protectors I put on did have like a little edge. I can tell you the one here on the outside, it almost does have like a little tiny sliver they left for the bumper. And that's the difference between a company like Zag worked with Microsoft. They were in that program. They knew what the exact specs had to be. So they actually left room here for the bumper. D-Brand kind of did too. Like if you use a bumper and you want to use a D-Brand skin, they send you 3 skins. 1 for the front, 2 for the back. One of them is if you don't put the bumper on. One of them is if you do put a bumper on and you have that kind of like little edge there. and so the skin doesn't need to go under it. And I've also been thinking that reason for that sort of back, what we've been calling kind of grip. The more I think about it, and I haven't put the bumper on yet, I think that's for, to make sure I turn this off. When you flip the screen around with the bumper on, I think the bumper would cause it to basically do this. I'm doing an extreme version of it. But that's if you just had the bumper. I think they put the padding there so you can't squeeze it and put pressure on the hinge. So I think when you have like a little thing, a little pillow here, that's as far as you can go, and you won't be able to push it further. So I think that's actually why they did that.
We figured it out. That's the secret use case. It's to stop you from breaking it.
Yeah, I really think that's all it is.
That's an article. the inside secrets of the Surface Duo bumper case, part 1.
Yeah, I mean, but it goes to show you the precision and the engineering they made of this device. It's pretty insane.
Yeah, and the compromises. Well,
Can you tell us what Sparty is now? Yeah, we could. Will we? No.
No. I listen. I don't want to give you wrong information. That'd be the bad thing, wouldn't it? So let's just wait until I have it confirmed.
Surface car.
Yeah. I saw one. It's got. Will Microsoft ever make a mobile OS again? I don't think so. Not a smartphone OS, if that's what you're asking. Of course, 10X is kind of a mobile OS because it's built for like low end mobile PCs. But smartphone-based stuff, I don't think so. I think we're done with that. Who knows? Who knows, right? Like, we can never say never. Maybe something terrible will happen and Apple will close down one day, and then there's suddenly room for another smartphone platform. But you just don't know. As of right now, no. There are no plans to bring back Windows on smartphones.
Why doesn't Microsoft do an iMac killer? ARM-based 10X with super 120Hz 4K graphics. Don't forget 5G, Wi-Fi 8, and NFC. I don't know. I don't think they build products to be blank killers. That's not how the Surface team thinks. They build devices that currently really don't exist on the market. Surface Studio is not any kind of Mac killer. It's its own thing. It's a mobile. It's an easel. Giant easel display that can go down, act as a drafting table. There's no Mac that can do that. So you may want to compare some of their stuff to Macs, but they don't build their stuff to be killers. That said, I'll also point out, Apple's less than 10% of the PC market. I'm not sure what you need to kill of theirs. I mean, they get a lot of attention. They get a lot of, people in tech media use their stuff. But they're not actually a big threat in the actual market anywhere. So I'm not sure why they need to be killed. That said, the thing you mentioned with the specs, I don't think is possible. I don't see how ARM Qualcomm right now is not nearly as powerful as some of the more powerful Intels you can do, especially in an iMac. Like an iMac, you can put in at least a 45-watt chip. So, yeah, I don't know. That's all I got to say on that.
Will Microsoft ever revisit the 8-inch form factor? With the Surface Mini, they were nearly ready, and with Windows 10, they wanted to put mobile OS on the devices instead of desktop. I don't think so. I think the mini tablets market is not dead, but it's won. Apple won that with the iPad Mini, and it's a very small market, and there's no room for any other competitor. Windows sucks on tablets as is. It being on a small 8-inch tablet doesn't improve things. Perhaps that will change with 10X, but I doubt it.
Yeah. You all had a chance.
You should have all bought 8-inch tablets when they were out.
Listen, one of the best I actually bought was a Lenovo Lenovo IdeaPad 8. It's an 8-inch tablet, beautiful high resolution display, had this awesome folio cover. It was wild. Ran Windows 8, upgraded to Windows 10. None of you bought it. It was $499. Like, it was a deal compared to everything out there. No one bought these things. And the few that did buy them didn't enjoy them. So I don't see the argument for bringing this stuff back. Unless, as Zach said, 10X comes along and it changes things. But I think even there, I think Microsoft sees like this design as a better choice for that kind of form factor.
Which Surface is Zach's favorite, and why is it Duo? Yeah, I mean, let's be real. Duo probably is up there. Although I've not touched one yet, I'm pretty sure it will be my favorite. Only because it's a phone, right? You use it every day. It's a way more personal device than a PC or a tablet, which you pick up every now and then. Yeah, I'm excited for Duo, but not including the Duo. I think my favorite Surface is the Surface laptop. I love the Surface laptop. 15-inch all metal. It's a good one.
How many watches am I wearing? Just two. I just have the
just two. He says, as if that's just
active.
normal.
But that's not a watch. I don't consider the Fitbit
oh
a watch.
no, you're
Fitbit's
right.
a fitness band, and I have the display off all the time. It's just my heart rate and steps, right? But that's how I normally roll. I roll the Fitbit. I don't really care about the smartwatch right now. I'm wearing it just for testing purposes. But normally, as I showed Zach before, I'd be wearing a Mule Glashut SAR watch. That's a full automatic with 1,000 meter water resistance. That's my choice.
Could you see the Neo moving from 10x to using Android if the Duo does well and just be a bigger version of the Duo, similar to how the iPad initially was a bigger version of the iPhone? No, because Android sucks on tablets. It always comes back to this. Android is fantastic on anything that's smaller than 7 inches. If it's bigger than 7 inches, it's rubbish. It on a tablet-sized canvas, it doesn't work, and that's where Windows comes in. Windows is good on those bigger screen form factors, such as the Surface Neo with its double 9-inch setup. Yeah, I do not. Microsoft would rather cancel the Neo than ship it with Android. It makes no sense to ship. I've seen people say, "Oh, I bet you any money now that they've done an Android phone that they'll do an Android tablet, they'll do an Android Surface Pro." I will. Yeah. Eat my hat if they do an Android Surface Pro. It just doesn't make any sense in any way. Windows is superior on a screen size that large in every way.
Yeah. Otherwise, just go buy a Samsung Chrome tablet.
Exactly.
Right now.
They're out there. They exist.
There are new ones. Yeah, Samsung just announced some new ones. Go buy them. Live the dream. Yeah. Do you think Duo will be a win for Microsoft? It depends how you define win. I can already tell you, I could have told you the reviews for Surface Duo last year, right? It's going to be really exciting hardware, or I should say really beautiful hardware that's well thought out and just really kind of amazing. Really neat idea with the dual screen stuff. The software and experience is a story to be told. It needs to be evolved and developed because such a radical change doesn't happen on a version 1. And of course, you're going to need better stuff like a better camera, NFC, and all that, Qi, and all that kind of stuff that people want. That's your review. I guarantee that's all the reviews are going to say is like, this is a Gen 1 product. Not only hardcore people should get it, but watch this space. I think it'll be, to the more meta question, I think people will see the value in dual screens. I'm not sure they're all going to love the current implementation of it since it's so early. And I think that's an obvious thing. That's not a review, right? That's just, there's no way. We've never done dual screens like this on Android. So to expect it on a version 1, when Fold 1 came out, it wasn't great, right? That was a very Gen 1 product. And then look what happened with Gen 2. Look at all the early reviews who are hands-on with Fold 2. Everybody's been like, oh, damn, Samsung really stepped up with the hardware here because they listened, right? So that's the benefit of doing a Gen 2 and a Gen 3. So that's how I think it. In terms of sales, I think they're going to have very modest expectations here. But again, it's not about this device the next 2 months. It's about this device, this series for next couple of years.
Dan, have you tried opening the Duo with one hand?
No, I don't open my Z Flip with one hand.
Oh,
I know
the Z Flip's easy though with one hand.
Yeah, but when you stick your thumb, you wedge it underneath the screen, and then you flick it with your wrist. There's 2 problems I have with that. One, you're going to wear out the hinge by flicking it, right? 2, by jamming your thumb under the screen. I take vitamins. I'm very healthy, I like to think. Maybe not. I haven't been to a doctor in 20 years. But my nails are very hard. And so I know for a fact,
dig the screen.
If I'm jamming my thumb in between 2 soft plastic displays, I wouldn't be shocked if I start scratching that display doing that. So the Z Flip has always been a single screen device. I also paid for my Z Flip. I know a lot of people you see on Twitter flicking it on one, they got review units and got to basically keep them. So they don't care as much. I care. So no, the Duo is a two-hand device.
Yeah.
And if that bothers you, don't get the Duo. I don't know what else to tell you.
Can we?
By the way, I was going to say you can use the Duo in phone mode, which feels like a normal phone.
When is the embargo on the Surface Review Duo ends? September 10th.
What are your way too early expectations for Gen 2?
I want a third screen.
They won't do a third screen.
No, I know they won't.
Won't happen.
But I want one.
Nope, no third screen. 865, 875, more modern chipset, bottom line. Possibly 5G. Well, they go.
Oh, it will be definitely 5G. There's no question. Yeah.
So 5G, improved camera, probably an external camera this time, maybe. NFC. I don't care about Qi. I mean, I like Qi. I'll never say no.
I mean, I won't say no to it. Please, Microsoft.
Right. But it's not like make or break for me. So
I'll be interested to see if they do the concept where they had the displays that curve around the hinge. That's all I want them to do. They could. The Duo 2 could be the exact same as Duo 1 with the same specs and everything, but with the hinge that has the screen that curves around it. I just want that so much.
That would be cool if they could pull that off. They'd also, I expect them to thin out the bezels a little bit.
Tiny bit, yes.
We're talking like Surface Go to Surface Go 2.
Exactly. It's a small.
Where that wasn't like a radical shift, but it was just enough. It was just enough to make people a little bit better. But you can't make these things too thin. Otherwise, the device is hard to use. Mm-hmm. We'll worry about 3 screens in a couple of years. Let's just get with 2 first.
Are you doing a special podcast on the 10th? I don't think so. I think we'll just wait for the 11th, where we normally do the show. There's no rush to instantly talk about your review.
Besides, according to Zach, I'll have to be shipping out.
Yeah, Dan's busy on Thursday, so he's going to be at the post office.
Can we expect up to 3 years of support for Duo as far as Android updates are concerned?
Yes.
Yes, because Microsoft has said as much. 3 years.
Unless they're lying, which I don't.
Right.
I'm going to keep them to their word.
That's why I do expect Duo 2 to be successful in the sense they're definitely going to do Duo 2. I expect them to do Duo 3. I think this form factor has promise. I really do. And let's be clear. The Surface team and Microsoft really believe in this form factor. They want to be launching it kind of with this older hardware and the obvious hardware. Like I said, you can kind of write the review for this already because you know the negatives, right? They wouldn't be putting it out there. They really didn't believe in it. They really thought, oh, this is like, it's a bit of a risk, but they really do believe in this form factor. And the reason I bring that up is because say it doesn't work, right? It doesn't work out for them. You still have an Android phone with 3 years of updates. You can also return it within 60 days, of course. And you're going to continue to just get Android app updates forever, right? Unless they break. That's very different from Windows Phone, where support ended, and there was already a decline on app quality, new apps coming, and current apps being updated, right? So if you just get this, the worst case scenario is you have an Android phone for the next 2 to 3 years that works as an Android phone. And then when your contract is up or you have more money, you just go buy whatever Android phone is out there in the market that you really want at the time. It's kind of different from Windows Phone, where that was.
Yeah, because there's no ecosystem lock-in. You can go to any other phone and everything you did on the Duo carries over to your new phone, whether it's a Samsung, a OnePlus, or a Microsoft phone.
Can we expand there? Asking about the time. I forgot what the time is. I don't know.
It will be at some point on September 10th in the US.
I don't know what New
Zealand embargo. It'll probably be in New Zealand. It will be closer to September 11th.
New Zealand doesn't even exist. It's a mythical island off the coast of China, right? Yeah, there's nothing there in New Zealand. Yeah.
Oh dear.
No one's ever proven that island to exist.
Well, the Hobbits did in Lord of the Rings.
Oh, okay. Actually, no joke. I've moved to New Zealand. Yeah.
So would I. New Zealand's great.
But it'd be hard to get. I mean, getting my review units will be a real pain.
Yeah. Or maybe easier, because sometimes, for some reason, Australia, sometimes, I've realised
Oh,
Australia
special
and New
rights in
Zealand are
China?
different, don't worry. Australia
Yep.
gets like stuff before the UK sometimes. What the hell?
Got to ship from China directly. Be a little faster. An expensive Android phone. Great. Versus what? It already is an expensive Android phone. it, it doesn't
I'd, ra-
change anything.
I'd rather use an expensive Android phone than a cheap one.
It's true. It's true.
Neo is legit the thing I'm most excited about in tech, and the only thing keeping me going. Oh, that's a bit sad. The Neo is fantastic. I'm excited for the Neo too. Don't get me wrong. Unfortunately, it's not coming for a while. The Duo is the next best thing, or you can wait for some of the other OEMs to release their foldable stuff, which will likely be running full Windows 10. I think Lenovo is about to release, or is supposed to be soon releasing their foldable tablet, which will be with Windows 10. And although it's not a dual screen thing, it is still a foldable, and it's pretty cool.
I'm sharing the link again for the Duo FAQ because we're getting a lot of the same questions. What about monthly updates and security updates, the cadence? Yes, Microsoft is committed to monthly updates for this. It's going to be like current Surfaces. When they get updates, you go to the Surface update page, you see what's new, what the version is, all that. Like, that's going to be a thing. You can get monthly updates. You're going to be on the monthly security thing. The thing I mentioned earlier about them working with Google and not doing an offshoot, I said it was easier. If like Microsoft wanted to just completely customize this and they're just going to, strong arm this, basically branch off Android to do their own thing. If they do that, the problem then becomes getting those security updates because then the update time is longer. If they stick with Google and play within the Google system and all the changes they do with this phone are within Google, guess what? Your security updates get here faster because there's less stuff to review. So that's another benefit for the reason why some of the aspects of Duo are less exciting than where Samsung is right now. But in theory, and what I've been told, is we should see a regular cadence of updates. But go check out the FAQ, windowscentral.com/surface-duo, and I answer all the stuff there.
All right, a couple more questions, and I think it's time to head off. Who else could be the face of Surface/Windows if Panos were to leave? That's a good question. I mean, I'd take the job. Hello, I'm here. I don't know.
Because if he left, he would take half his team with him, I guarantee.
Yeah, true. Joe Belfiore, I'd like to see back in charge of Windows. I liked his vision for things.
Do you think Duo is a fair price? I'm not answering that. That's completely subjective and relative. It's expensive. I mean, there's no way around it. I can't say it's cheap. Is it a good value? No. If you want, I would tell you go buy a Samsung Note 20 Ultra for basically the same price. But is the Note 20 Ultra a fair value or a fair price? I don't know. It's super expensive too. Honestly, probably just getting a Pixel 4a is probably a good value. So I don't know. This is the price for new technology. Just like if you want a 5G phone, you're going to pay more for that too. It's just that's always going to be tech.
When will 20H2 be available? It's a good question. It's about done, I'm pretty sure. It could roll out as soon as next week, although I doubt it at this point. This month, next month, in the next couple of months, it'll be rolling out to the public.
Do I still have the Lumia 950 XL? Sure, it's in a box somewhere. Yes. I am not pulling it out. I'm not going to compare it.
Mine's right here.
Mine is somewhere here. Someone's asking me for a picture with compared to the Lumia 1520. Like, I don't even know where that is. It's in a box somewhere, but I'm not pulling that out. Sorry.
Yeah.
I got too much stuff to do. All right. Yeah, let's go. I'm tired.
Okay. Thank you so much for tuning in, everybody. We'll be back next Friday for an exciting episode where Dan will be able to show you the screens and talk about the software on the Surface Duo. And hopefully, I doubt it, but hopefully I'll have one as well.
You won't. You will. No, there's no way.
And if it arrives 7 a.m. at your door, then maybe.
It won't be 7 a.m. at my door. You'll get it that Wednesday. The next.
Okay. Problem. All right. Thank you, everybody. We'll be back. Follow us on Twitter. We'll keep you updated when we go live. But until then, we will see you next time.